I remember once upon a time I felt I didn't understand these Leningrad structures in the Grunfeld.
Yeah.
And then you would watch Boris do it and you'd think, okay, I wish I could play it like that. But it's not enough to just study 1 or 2 games.
Can you learn
Somehow he
skills?
hasn't. Yes, I believe that you can, especially nowadays. This is probably the most important thing, that you sit with the positions that you're not very good at and you use the computer.
You play chess? You want to know all the secrets of Grandmasters? You want to watch all current tournaments and know everything about chess history?
Levitov Chess World is much more than everything above.
Unique documentaries about Garry Kasparov, Vladimir Kramnik, and many other legends of chess. Streams from the biggest tournaments. World Championship, Magnus versus Nepomniachtchi, commented by Peter Svidler, Evgeny Miroschnichenko. The Candidates Tournament, Tata Steel Chess Tournament. Exclusive interviews, Daniil Dubov, Viswanathan Anand, Jean-Christophe Duda, Alexander Grishuk, and of course, awesome educational videos with elite international chess coaches. Play chess, love chess, and subscribe now. New video every week. Turn on notifications and don't miss all the exciting moments of the chess world.
Like every generation, my generation built on what the previous generation was playing, and then the same procedure occurs, the same pattern repeats. Also stylistically, they're all, it's almost like they're mirroring us a bit. If you look at Carlsen and Caruana and Maxime and Nakamura, then I'm sure you can pair each one with a player from the past and it'll sort of match. And again, you can see also how people evolve. Hikaru used to play quite differently from what he does now. I think now he tries to be more classical than he used to be, and before he was really much more on sound. But it worked for him because it suited his style and his nature. And that's the thing, how do you learn something new without spoiling what used to work? I think Caruana is someone who's just an incredibly hard worker. Maybe in this sense, he reminds me of Boris, for instance, or maybe Vladi. I'm not sure who resembles me exactly. I mean, I have this slightly unsound part of me, but at some point I also tried to learn the Soviet school of chess's methods, this systematic study and so on. So, of course, I was wild till I was 20 or 21. Then once I started playing the matches, I think my style evolved a lot. I became aesthetically very conservative.
Because of the matches?
Yes, and because in general, you play top tournaments, you play matches, and you start to become so-called sound, which means you don't do you stop doing a lot of things. I think over time, it's probably done more for me than, done me more good than bad. But clearly, later on, and nowadays, I find it very hard to do unsound things because I mentally trained myself to stop doing it. And it's difficult for me to break out of this also.
Here's some nostalgia a little bit, yeah?
Yes, quite often I look at people who do unsound things and I think, it's a pity I don't really have this anymore. I wonder if I could get it back. And then you think, but again, we always face the same problems, but there is never entirely in the same way. So nowadays, there are things you want to relearn, but you have to respect that now our understanding of positions has changed, computers have changed a lot. You have to use new methods to learn old stuff. Well, at the beginning I took to it like a fish to water because it filled the biggest gaps in my chess. My biggest gap in those days was chess knowledge. It simply wasn't drilled into me in the same way. I had enough, but I had this very casual, I would pick up a book, read it, close it, then 2 days later pick up the same book again, read it again. There was nothing very organized or systematic about it. And then suddenly databases came along, and it made it so easy for me to have access to all the latest tournaments, and it simplified life a lot in the beginning. I would say the first 5-10 years I took to it like a fish to water. I mainly benefited from it. But that is also because I was at that perfect age where you're not resistant to new knowledge. There is nothing you have an emotional attachment to, and therefore you're unwilling to forget. And you absorb new knowledge effortlessly. So if we look at modern computers and what they show, I find the modern generation is the least resistant. They're the ones for whom it doesn't contradict a lifetime of learning.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, I would say it's a huge help. But of course, the computer revolution didn't stop. It continued and it picked up speed. And so there are periods when I found that I couldn't keep up. I found it hard to adjust. And I've brought up this topic of learning and relearning because it's very important. First of all, you know that we can almost forget everything Steinitz told us. Not forget in its entirety, but there are so many details that and so many nuances that you cannot just say move a piece once and this and that. Those rules don't make sense anymore. But even the rules that I thought I grew up with, suddenly, I mean that it's possible to be too dogmatic in chess. And there are no longer, I think, this concept of just the best moves. There are all sorts of moves, and each one has a stylistic component. They're not right or wrong. They're stylistic, and it's the sequence that can be right or wrong. So if you can play what we used to consider a bad move, but if you then are tactically very accurate, then it works. And probably that's the biggest difference between the younger generation and me nowadays, is that I think they suffer less. They also find it difficult. So I shouldn't exaggerate, but I think they suffer less. Whereas for our generation, very often we get into a position where we think this must be good. And it's quite a shock when you go back home and you check it and you realize that it isn't good. And then there is actually quite some learning in sitting and checking it slowly and realizing why it isn't good. But yeah, it's tough. I think this is full of false positives. In the sense that there are days I've woken up and thought today is going to be a good day, I'm just feeling great, and it has been a great day, and you come back thinking, well, of course, QED. But there are as many days when I wake up and I think today feels really good, and you play a game, and without making excuses, today was one of these days. I felt quite good in the morning, but then I played 2 games, and now you think, how is it possible? I didn't even know I was capable of such bad chess. I mean, you like to think there is some sort of floor below which you cannot sink, and then you find that floor doesn't exist. And this happens to me quite often. One of the things we strive for is to have these early warning signals. It doesn't have to be before the game, it can be during the game. At a certain point, you find yourself thinking thoughts that, you would call it unhealthy, but basically what they are is, in previous games, when you've started to have these thoughts, it's ended badly. So there's a negative correlation. You think, when I think this, or when my mind is wandering off to this other subject, or something like that, typically I play badly then. So what you try to tell yourself is, okay, I'm familiar with the situation, it's happened to me before, it's time to pull myself together and try to get into a healthier frame of mind. Sometimes it's enough, sometimes you snap back. But nowadays I find that quite often when I'm at my worst, I have no sign of it coming. I play games that afterwards you think, my moves are so illogical that something went horribly wrong in my head. But if I could figure out what it is, then I would be a better player. I mean, sometimes it's almost like a study. You have to play perfectly to lose this position because it's impossible to lose it. And then you play perfectly. And the thing is, while you're playing it, every move of yours makes sense in a certain sequence. But then you realize afterwards that it's a total breakdown in your brain, that the entire sequence you got wrong. You made a move thinking it was your best choice under the circumstances. Then sometimes a minute later you realize it isn't, and sometimes you don't. But for me, it would be very nice if I had some way to find this this signal. You know, if I could anticipate it, then that would be very big help for me. Because if you can anticipate it, then the next time if you see it coming, you'll know, okay, it's time to do this or do that. But these days I'm just floored when I'm playing badly. I cannot explain how I can play that badly for 4-5. But there's a breakdown in logic where you sometimes see a very complicated problem and then you come up with a very elegant solution to that problem and you miss something that's right in front of you. How to avoid that is a harder question because I mean, there are times when I tried to work on this problem, but I've concluded that when your brain is your enemy, then you can't fool it. You can't bring it back. The better thing is to work on what goes well and try to maximize that rather than try to stop failure. Because, I mean, like today, you can't tell why suddenly this happens, but it just happens. And when it starts, you can't stop it even.
You can't stop it, huh?
Apparently, I'm not able to. But this is a complicated subject because I can give you many examples where I have done something about it and I've fixed the problem, but it never fully goes away. You know the expression, old wine in a new bottle?
Yeah.
For me, my collapses keep on reoccurring in new forms that I don't even recognize.
So it stays, how your brain reacts to different situations stays a little bit a mystery to you.
Yes, I feel that, see, when you're young, a couple of failures, you just brush it off and you play the next event and you think it'll go better, and it does go better. Let's say this is proving harder to do these days, but it was the same 20 years back. I did not know in advance when I was going to play badly. If I knew that, it'll change so much about what you do, but I haven't figured that one out. Yes, experience is one of the main things you can draw on. I think it's very nice when you remember something and you think this is how it worked, and not only at a technical level, but also at a psychological level, at an emotional level. If you can remember what works and you can isolate it, then it will improve your results. I often see things that youngsters do that I think, okay, that's a mistake. I see it, but you have to keep a fresh mind. Sometimes they do things better than you. One of the worst mistakes is to think that because you had a problem you couldn't solve, that nobody can solve it. And this is a big mistake you can make, because quite often these days, and again, this is one of the areas computers change everything, because they rewrite the script. Well, there might be positions that are just simply impossible for you to play, things that you thought were solved, and then people come up with new ways of doing that, and then suddenly it opens your mind to what is possible in chess. And this, I think if you ever lose this feeling, then you're over. You must always be willing to learn something new. So, I think youngsters also do things that I thought, oh, he's making a mistake because if he does this, he's going to end up in this. And sometimes they surprise you. Sometimes they do it better than you, and you think, oh, wow. Apparently, it's not that it was impossible. It's just I couldn't do it. So you also have to balance it. Sometimes they make mistakes, but sometimes it's just their way of doing things. But you see more and more that every player's personality is very important. in the way he approaches a problem. Because what doesn't work for you may well work for him. So it's not the same thing psychologically. Extremely well at a very high level. It's almost like you're jealous, but that you admire. So for me, I would say that kind of...
And we're live, hopefully, with Game 4 of the World Championship match in Dubai. Hi everybody, I'm Peter Svidler, and with me is my good friend Evgeny Miroschnichenko, and we will be hoping to guide you through what's happening today. First three games, we spoke about the first three games. My impression is that this is a very... but I always have that impression. I don't know if you will agree with me. I always have the impression that the World Championship match is extremely interesting. I think I might be a bit biased because some of them are more interesting than others. But I think the first three games were very exciting and quite well played. And I'm hoping for more of the same.
People say it's boring, all draws.
Yeah, that's what people say, and then I kind of start swearing under my breath and suggesting that people might be wrong, or sort of very, very quietly, because obviously you can never suggest people are wrong. People are never wrong. That's why they're people. But
yeah, so sorry. Just want to say welcome to the stream, Twitch chat, YouTube chat, and stop complaining about. Peter interrupting the video, because this video can be found on the main Levitov Chess channel, and it's an actual very nice film documentary about this tournament in Amsterdam, so you can watch it full.
Yeah, absolutely. The Levitov Chess without the world, the Levitov Chess main channel has a lot of very, very nice material, and everything you're watching in the breaks is available there. That and much more. And I actually tried actually cutting it, because the interview that was running, it's in 3 parts, and I basically stopped it between the 2 parts, so it wasn't really in full swing. It was as much as it was possible to do it. I did cut it off when it was sort of cut off logically. Knowing the stream on YouTube today, I have it open.
There is a chat on YouTube. YouTube chat, tell us if the stream is up.
Don't scare me like this, Foxubo. The YouTube stream is up and running and shows exactly what you're watching on Twitch. Just with just with fewer emotes, which obviously is a huge disadvantage. So what do we expect in terms of openings? I would really like some more extremely sharp Catalans. But
Carlsen will move first.
Yeah, Carlsen will move first.
And Nepo will reply, and then Carlsen will make his second
on
it goes.
We are crushing this prediction game. I'm pretty sure all of this will actually happen, putting us, far ahead of all the predictors.
Most of the guys who are trying to predict. No, but seriously, I think everything we said about the Rogozin before game 2 is kind of still
absolutely
viable.
Let's remind people that we were 75% into getting our kind of a joking prediction for the opening in game 2 completely correct, because the feeling is, stylistically, of all the options Black has in this position, Jan is actually quite likely, I think, to choose Rogozin. There's obviously plenty of other moves in this position available to Black. You can play Bishop b7, switching to Queen's Gambit declined. You can play c6 and play the Meran Moscow anti-Moscow complex. You can take on c4 and play the Vienna. But Bishop b4, I think, is very much up Jan's alley. The types of positions you often get in the Rogozin. But Magnus, of course, played g3 and they played a Catalan.
So the thing with the Catalan, I think the main question kind of being asked. So what's your system against the Catalan? It happens to be this DC4, B5 system. So at least I do not expect the repetition of knight e5, because as you said, by then it should be thoroughly analyzed by Jan's team, right?
You get the feeling that repeating the entire thing, including knight e5 in this position, which probably regardless of what black plays, because I thought maybe it's slightly more precise to begin with knight d5, but my feeling is white can probably force the same position by playing a4 anyway, because it's not very likely that the move c6 can be, much improved upon in this position. But there's a number of options starting from here. You have queen takes d4, which we mentioned, but didn't really go too much in depth about when we were doing game 2. But then you're kind of stuck in the Catalan, aren't you? A little bit.
I mean, unless something new will be discovered in like 95 lines,
Yeah, because once again, I haven't really looked at this. I have looked at the same position with knight on c3 and a king steal on e1. There I have some knowledge. Here, my knowledge is extremely rudimentary, but this is supposed to be...
No, this is
supposed to just be a draw, right?
Sorry to disappoint you, it's a draw. No, I thought knight takes knight a3.
Yes, that line.
Which probably also a draw, but kind of a little bit more sophisticated one. And bishop takes and pawn takes, and, they do stuff here.
Yeah, those positions are definitely sharper than the one I showed just a moment ago. Is the knight c3 Catalan against bishop e7 completely dead, asks Hali606. And that's actually what I was referring to. You can, in this position, you can play knight c3, and then if black does the same...
And then here, it's interesting.
You have a suspicion c5 holds, but people have not really been playing it all that much because you are kind of really only hoping to make some kind of a slightly groveling draw for black. So there's this...
Yeah, that's exactly what Catalan player wants from you. So that you play c5 and he has this better bishop and he's kind of slightly better for ages.
So there's this move queen d6, which is quite interesting. And also, strictly speaking, you're not much worse after knight c6. But the difference is, just to kind of continue the opening lecture, I'm completely unqualified to give. The main difference here is that
is queen a4.
You can, in some cases, castle queenside. You will actually use the chance to castle queenside here. After c5, black... Yeah, you take, you play bishop e3.
Bishop e3.
And very often, the king actually goes to c1. Which looks maybe slightly weird because there are some files open on the queen side. But it's very... with the current pieces on the board, it's very safe on c1.
Yeah, I'd say, you can describe it as like light square bishop. I mean, I can see it attacking the king side, black's light square bishop. But how on earth are you getting it, kind of making it a useful piece to attack the c1 king? So the king on c1 kind of protects b2. It's good for the endgames, if any will occur, right? It's much more convenient to have the king on c1. And I think... there have been quite a lot of games, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is Caruana Nakamura the one we possibly...
I actually played this myself against Hikaru, and I was quite a bit better, but didn't win. So I even have some personal experience in this line, somewhat surprisingly, because I don't play these positions very often with either color. In Palma de Mallorca Grand Prix 2017, I want to say. Possibly 18. Everything kind of blends together and in my mind by this point. So yeah, this option exists, but I don't know if it's good enough in a World Championship match. Lorinda's asking, do you think Magnus will be more reluctant to get to the rapid than he was against Fabi? I think he still feels he's favored in a rapid match against more or less anyone. More or less anyone in the world, so... comparing to how favored he felt against Fabi, maybe. But let's say if the score is equal after game 12 and there's 2 to go, and I need to kind of... I didn't check what they do with the colors this much. Do they do the usual thing of flipping the colors midway so that the same person... person who played...
And that would mean Jan plays white in the last
Yeah, that
game,
actually
right?
is... kind of trickier for Magnus to manipulate, even though he took a very, very, sort of controversial draw in game 14 against Fabi, right? Which was game 12. Yeah, I keep on, I did that game 12 with game 14.
Yeah, they've managed to confuse everyone with this number of games thing.
So But let's say if you imagine the situation where Magnus is white in the last game and scores a 6-6 after game 12, I think even against Jan he might play game 13 reasonably conservatively, and then perhaps just sort of remove game 14 altogether, the way he did against Karakin. As much as
Look, and Eric Christensen actually says there won't be any double colors.
Then Magnus is white in the last game.
So it goes white, black, and so on.
And we are absolutely flying the flag here for extremely well prepared casters. This is something like we really could have known in advance. But thank you very much for providing info for us.
I don't think reading the regulation, which is like 40 pages.
By regulations, but things sort of relevant to what we're talking about. I kind of feel that I could have, but I didn't. And I mean, thank you to Miro for supporting me by also not doing that, because making me look bad would be a possible play there on your part, but you chose not to do it. And thanks to chat for as usual being informative and a helping hand in a troubling moment in the stream.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Chessa's win in Twitch chat. So I mean, whenever I try to kind of read through some kind of regulation published by FIDE, I mean, I just give up because it's like paragraph 5A1 blah blah, and then it only makes it more confusing because some references to this user-friendly handbook, which is like 1,000 pages long.
Yeah, the handbook
basically explains you the rules of chess in an unprecedentedly complex manner. Wait, do you know how the knight moves, by the way, according to FIDE rules? L-shape.
Doesn't work, no?
No, it doesn't work. The closest square to the square it is initially on, but not on verticals, horizontals, or diagonals.
Nice.
And it pretty much freaking describes the knight move, but why so complex?
I mean, it's technically correct, but why would they choose to describe it this way is unclear. There's a question.
So the question, I can see a lot of Hearthstone people. So what do you expect today? Kind of, I mean, it will be a mirror match for sure, and it will be the odd decks mirror match. But what do you expect?
All of these people are
all
of these people. I think no, that's actually not true. In particular, if Bunny shows up, there will be some actual Hearthstone players. But I wanted to say these are BG's players, and they don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Anyway, I mean, do you expect as sharp of a game as Game 2?
I really hope so, but I don't. I think Game 2 was an outlier. I don't think it. We are very likely to see it repeated.
So kind of you cannot really keep up with, such a tension in every single game.
I think the reason it became so sharp is that Jan actually got surprised in the opening, and I'm basing this particular argument on what he said in the post-game interviews. I did not ask him, and I'm not planning to bother him with messages while he's playing a World Championship match. But he did say, I saw an interview with him where he said that he played the opening in Game 2 beginner level, basically. This is, I think, verbatim how he described his play in Game 2 in the opening. And then you get those very, very disbalanced positions when somebody, perhaps being surprised in a sharp line, he chooses something which looks extremely odd just to avoid what he assumes is the main prep. And E4 played today, which is
an E5 play.
And E5,
okay.
Yeah.
And the Petrov, and here we go home early happily.
Well, we don't know about early and or happily, but
I predict a horse move after knight f3. And the
Petrov. Yeah, there we go.
And I call.
There we go. And this actually, I was going to say, there was a question in chat about the likelihood of seeing a Rossolimo today. And I was going to rate it very low, but not because of the Petrov. I thought Magnus will stick with 1d4 for one more game because of how, generally, I think how well the opening came out for him. But Somebody in chat also correctly pointed out that against Fabi he kept on alternating. So it's not unheard of for him to do this kind of a little bit of this, little bit of
Hang on a
that.
second. I'm not. You kind of got me confused a little. So, how does Rossolimo correlate with the Petrov? So people were expecting that Jan's going to play c5 and then play knight c6.
I thought that was the.
But why is that? What kind of Sicilian you want to? So you kind of want to play the Sveshnikov?
I guess, yeah. Like if you play e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, I assume you probably want to play the Sveshnikov. And, seeing that Jan is now playing the Petrov, which is a very concrete opening, I think in most cases aiming. A lot depends on his next move, though. I'm very curious which sixth move he will choose. And yeah, Bishop d6. Bishop d6 is a line which aims to be very, very concrete. There's a lot of...
aims to be cooler than Bishop e7.
And definitely cooler than Bishop e7 and or Bishop f5, which is also something that people have been doing quite a bit. These types of positions where Black is trying to say, I will be a little bit worse, but it's not enough, and eventually the game will, equalize to a sufficient degree that I will hold. And as usual, we seem to be having a little bit of an issue with castling, but it will resolve itself in a moment. Much faster than usual today, actually. There's a lot of developments in this line, I think. There was a period where people sort of exclusively played Bishop e7, castles, knight c6 in some move order, and this was the absolute, central starting position of the Petrov, like when Vladimir Kramnik was like the main driving force for the Petrov theory on the Black side. He did this and almost never, I think, played Bishop d6 at all. And then I think that in my mind, I call it sort of the Chinese Petrov, the Bishop f5, Bishop e7, knight d6 lines became more fashionable. But now I think there's a very significant movement towards just playing Bishop d6. Yeah, there's a lot more of the Bishop d6 games these days.
Oh, it's interesting. So can tell you, I was looking at this in 2011, 2012, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe a bit later. And the thing is, it was played in correspondence a lot. It was played in correspondence, relatively a lot, right? And it would result in some really weird positions. I believe nowadays those lines are not viable, even though correspondence, but, new engines, new stuff. But it felt like it's a very, very interesting line, that one, that you can, if white is kind of tries to apply some pressure, you are in fact running some risk of winning the game with black, which is not a very common occurrence in the Petrov.
Bishop d6 is a lot more double-edged, in particular in some of the sharper lines. The old theory used to be, Jan is still thinking, but I assume he will play c6. Other moves exist, but they generally aren't really supposed to be all that great. Because apart from c takes d5, even the idea of playing c5 and then putting the bishop on f4 after driving this one back to e7 is sometimes quite annoying. Jan already away from the board, very strange, says Jake Goldsmith. I don't think it's strange. This is what I, at least for me it's not strange, because this is what I do constantly. Like, I make a move and I get up. I don't like sitting at the board.
You don't like chess?
Clearly.
As my old coach would say, you don't like playing chess. You just want to.
As evidenced by me doing this and many other
you're
things.
Absolutely right. It's a lot of people's habits. So the ones who see Jan not sitting at the board shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So c6 is by far the main move here. And the old theory used to be queen c2. And in this position, black used to play knight a6, creating this idea of knight b4. And also, note that this is the first occurrence today where black will just be completely ignoring the fact that seemingly the pawn on e4 is hanging. And after a3, black used to play a5 here. and it became unbelievably messy. I once won a very, very complicated and interesting game against Alexander Morozevich in a Russian championship that basically was very instrumental in me winning the title in 2003. But now I think after queen c2, the main move in this position seems to be h7, h6, which is even more striking, because it just completely ignores the fact that the pawn is hanging.
Yeah, you just say whatever.
Like if white takes twice, black goes rook e8, queen g3, bishop g4, and says, we are now threatening to take, you will take with the queen, I will play queen h4, and queen takes d4, and I will win this pawn back. And if you really bend over backwards trying not to give me that pawn back, you will have to make such awkward moves that and once again I will be completely egregiously using the term martial compensation here, even though this is not a martial. The two bishops and reasonably open position, like if you play something like knight bg2, making all of these pieces completely stuck, black just has I assume knight a6, I don't know if that's the best move, but like knight a6 looks logical.
a3, knight c5
with those
stuff,
ideas,
yeah.
knight c5, you cannot take because of bishop takes h2 and queen takes d3.
I mean, you technically could knight h2, knight g4, but black's probably
not
better.
enjoying it very much. But Jan played rook e1 instead, which is also a very, very central move here, of course. And here the options are, you can play rook e8. I'm not sure if it's refuted, but it's definitely not the main line here. The main line here currently, I think, is bishop f5.
Not bishop g4.
I don't think it's bishop g4. I think it's bishop f5 specifically here.
I remember they used to be, but I mean, it's very easy to mix things up. But remember, there used to be this bishop g4 f5 things.
I don't think it's
lines,
there.
right?
It's here, though. I think.
I mean, it is confusing. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. It is quite confusing.
And after bishop f5, white once again has a number of options, but the main one is queen b3. And here I actually, in a rare case of me being somewhat ahead of my time in terms of like opening theory, I had an idea here which, in the wonderful days of where you could like have an idea and keep it for half a year or a year and then still get to play it ahead of everybody else. I played a game against, I think, Vasily Ivanchuk in one of the Linares Morelia tournaments, which went knight c3, bishop f5, queen f5. And here I played queen takes b7, a move which until that moment pretty much did not exist. Queen d7, knight d7, and c5. And this endgame still exists. There are high-level games still being played at in this endgame. White is probably a little bit better, but it's not easy to prove you have anything, and my game against Chuky finished in a draw. But they also found other ways to play. In particular, I think currently the thinking is if you give up the rook on a8, lure the queen into the corner and go queen d7 trying to catch it, I think this is now supposed to be a draw, even though black has to make it by playing precisely. And there's also other options here apart from knight takes c3. I think I had a game against Alexander Morozevich in this position, which went something along the lines of dc4, bishop c4. No, that was slightly different. Sorry, I think that was queen b3, knight a6. I played, I think, a3 here, and we got to, or maybe knight c3. But that was in 2005, so obviously my memory is a bit hazy. And we seem to be progressing along those lines because bishop f5 is on the board. 2 out of 4 games so far this match have followed old Svidler games, says Keep Your Cool. Yeah, I'm old enough to have played, a modicum of games in pretty much every single opening, so it's not very unlikely. I have some recent ideas about this position, but I'll wait until Magnus does something.
Okay, you have recent ideas, but do you remember the kind of the old ideas, which I don't think it was rook, or maybe it was rook e1. I mean, this thing when it's certainly not rook e1. When you take on d5, go knight c3, and then play rook b1 and rook b5, and it gets into something like crazy.
I had this against Alexander Grishuk just now in the European clubs. I was kind of hoping to surprise him by going really, really old school, just as you mentioned, yeah.
Yeah, that's an old line.
And unfortunately, it appears to just be a forced draw these days.
Rook b1.
No, b6 is a bad move.
What? No, you cannot play
knight d7,
b6,
and hang on a second. I didn't actually. Yeah, I played rook b5 here, and he just went knight f6 instead of the old main lines with knight b6. He played knight f6, and
There used to be there used to be knight b6, c4, something. Yeah, like.
After knight f6, apparently it's just more or less a forced draw. Unfortunately, but on the other hand,
Meh.
I kind of did enjoy having like half a day off in the European clubs, and Sasha didn't mind it either, so we were both okay with that. So queen b3, queen d7 on the board, and as I mentioned, knight c3 I think statistically is by far the main move in this position, but there are other options. Hello everyone, says Michael Schofield, this is a draw again. I'm not so sure. This position is actually a lot sharper than it looks at first glance. I'm very curious as to what Magnus will do here, because as I said, like I'm in a slightly weird position where I was told something about this position recently, but I really do want to wait until Magnus makes a move before proceeding any further, because as is often the case with ideas that somebody tells you about in a private conversation, I would like to show off my knowledge, but it's not really my knowledge, and the person who told me probably will not appreciate it very much if I start sharing it.
Mm-hmm. So do we keep it like a chess stream today, or for now at least? Yeah, for now it's a chess stream, and then later on.
Yeah,
maybe.
for now I think we can keep it reasonably chess oriented or based, or
yeah. It's just that people say 2005 was 11
I
years
think
ago.
yeah, that's a meme. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a meme of some sort. I trust our chat to be able to
Your math is somewhat off, sir. But, I mean that's how they say.
Knight c3 played. So yeah, then I'll keep my stupid opinions to myself.
Chess adjacent. Yeah.
So we are going down what is supposedly, I think, the main line here. Queen b7 is by far. He goes bc3. I was going to say queen b7. I always felt is by far the most challenging try, but yeah, Magnus disagrees. I'm trying to remember why I didn't like b takes c3 in this position.
Hang on a second, but what's the actual catch? Because after dc4, I can still go for your endgame. I can take, and I don't think you can play knight d7. You'll have to play queen d7, and we just arrive at the same thing.
I don't think you do. I think the point here is you can play queen d7 straight away. I think this was what I disliked when I was looking at this. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the main basic tactical point here is that you cannot do this.
Bishop h2, but knight e5 instead.
Yeah, after knight e5, I think the point is you can take, and if you take with the rook, I can go rook d8.
I go rook e8, yeah,
and then I get knight c6 next move.
Rook d8. I thought even rook e8.
Rook e8 might also be.
Queen d5. Sorry. That's it.
Yeah.
Queen d5. Rook e8,
that's
queen d5.
A bit of an issue.
Doesn't.
But rook d8 seems to be fine, because I don't think bishop g5. First of all, I think f6 works, but if for some reason it doesn't, I can go knight c6 anyway.
Yeah, f6 does work. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure the reason I was trying to make queen takes b7 work instead of b takes c3 here was specifically that you can go back and neither cd5 nor c5 bishop c7. Once again, obviously the same tactic, only inverted 90 degrees.
On the other hand, here you appear to be a little bit stuck. Huh?
Yeah, the next move, if possible, of course, is d takes c4. Like this.
No. I mean, we do go c5. Bishop c7, and imagine a move here. Just something. What will you play? Knight a6.
b6, I think. Probably b6. Yeah, king h1 or g3 does.
It's kind of king.
Or king f1. Yeah,
I don't know.
Which is much more sort of topical in terms of like the memory in this particular match would be. Also, hang on a second. Maybe we can also play b6. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, that what?
Yeah, people are saying that I've had this against Kramnik in 2007.
Yeah, but that's what chat was.
Check.
That was chat was screaming like b6 is forced even.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, could be. If it's 2007 and my game against Vlad, I have sneaking...
Not only it is forced, but it's
Yeah,
played.
I have a sneaking suspicion about this game. Which... Yeah, b6 and c takes d5 played instantly by Magnus. Now you really want to recapture with the pawn, because these positions actually are a little bit worse for black. They're not unplayable, but they are potentially dangerous. And the way the pieces are set up right now, it might even be sort of tactically problematic, because after something like queen f5, you might have to start calculating c5 with some queen b7 ideas. Yeah, 21 move draw suspicion confirmed. I don't know, like, to what extent you have suspicions there, Neil. You know, the 21 move draw was a very, very easy kind of a bet to make, but there could be, you know, you can go further.
All right, so c takes, queen b5 played at
Yeah,
tempo.
all of this being blitzed out is quite interesting. Magnus clearly has looked at this, which I think is not unexpected, because people do change their repertoire quite significantly when they're preparing.
Queen to d7
Yeah,
fast.
I'm pretty sure queen d3 is what's coming here, or a4. But a4, I think those endgames are not that bad. You can afford leaving this weakness on a7 if you want to, or perhaps even you can do something drastic like this, because I think these endgames are extremely level. So I'm expecting queen d3.
Like you're sort of running out of ammo with white. Yeah, in this kind of endgame. Yeah, you are just kind of marginally better, perhaps, but yeah. So queen d3, let's say. Black perhaps plays knight c6. He's so solid. I mean,
as usual, much depends on whether this is anything. But in this particular, he does play a4. Whoa.
Okay, makes sense. So here it's knight g5, g6.
Yeah, because we control the h3 square as black. This looks like it's just nothing at all, right? Because white doesn't have enough attacking pieces. We will play rook a8 or rook f8 next, or even...
Yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right, of course, that's a very common idea. So whenever black kind of doesn't pay enough attention to it, yes, it's knight g5 followed by queen h3, you provoke h5, and then, who knows, g4 or sometimes something else.
And apparently we're still following a Mickey game of some sort. I will actually look it up.
So not only it's your games, but also Mickey games that keep reoccurring in this match.
Yeah, this really doesn't look like very much. And Jan appears to be perfectly well prepared for it as well. So we might have... Okay, knight h4 played at tempo is kind of making me want to stop the sentence I was about to say. Because I was kind of assuming you cannot leave black with this protected passer on a5. And if you do take en passant here, I'm pretty sure you have absolutely nothing in a position like this. In fact, I would be a little bit worried with white, but probably...
I'd say rook b5, rook b1, keeping the knight on b8 might have been
stronger.
You know, rook b1 and then rook b5, keeping knights on rook b5 ideas. I mean, it shouldn't be anything, but rook b5, you still have rook a5. That's annoying.
And this one goes to c8.
Because knight f6, bishop g5, I wouldn't be unhappy about, of course.
But Magnus obviously, and it's just so much unlike Magnus to go for a line like this just to make a draw in 20 moves when it's game 4 of the match. Like if this were actually game 14 with the scores level, I could believe it. But in game 4, knight h4 is surprising because I didn't see the move, but it's not surprising at all that Magnus does this because I didn't think it was extremely likely he just wants a draw.
Does he know the saying about knight on the
But I'm kind of confused why he thinks this is great for white.
Knight to e3.
Yeah, some sort of a plan like this, but it's extremely slow. No,
it is.
Like, do you expect to actually get there?
Okay, g6 doesn't really... I mean, you cannot call it a weakness.
Well, I mean, knight f5 I think does need to be stopped. Like, if you can make a kind of a naive move like knight e7, you just resign.
This I can perfectly see what the problem is. Knight e7, rook e7 sometimes, g6 is forced. And then, I mean, I'm just trying to go by pure logic. You won't make knight f5 work without the queens. I mean, who is the pawn on g6? Let's be fair.
I actually
Let's be fair.
I actually
This will
considered
never-
something like this followed by knight f5 next move, but
Yeah,
the issue,
but
the issue,
is
even
tough.
g3 is covered, so none of this ever works. And what I want to say about this position is that unless we prove something with white straight away, I think we're just worse. And potentially
Absolutely.
quite significantly worse. So this, instantly moves this game out of the, boring, quiet Petrov queens off by move.
Yeah, kind of
Yeah.
damage control and everything.
Quick-
Yeah. I mean, now it's a full-blooded
Yeah.
fight.
It's an endgame, yes, but it's an endgame which the price of the move is extremely high here. So far I really don't understand why you would want this with white, which is making me more and more interested with every passing second, because I actually think it is g3. I think we I also wanted to try g3 here, because I don't understand what the point of this move is otherwise. Like knight g7.
Yeah, like
Knight
people
g2.
say G4, but yeah, G3 is just kind of a better version of
Yeah,
G4.
I
in
don't
my
quite
opinion.
know why. Yeah, like maybe the machine likes g4 better. I think maybe I know the point. Yeah, like in this position,
And knight G2 and bishop F4 somewhere.
maybe we can play knight e3 and we have a good reply to knight f6 with g4, g5 is my point. But
Even bishop F4 is an idea. I mean, if you
no,
somehow
but
pass.
the issue is nobody's going
But
to pass. Yeah,
it's hard to
nobody's going to
pass,
pass.
yeah.
This is already hanging. Why is this so great for white? Is extremely confusing for me.
It's kind of nobody said it's great, right? Okay, bishop F4. I mean, just to check.
Oh,
And say you take on C3, knight D5, and go find a move. Rook E7.
this is
Rook E7, and then
Aha.
what? I mean, you can't play. I mean, if you have to play knight B8,
this is very clever.
I mean, if it works, I don't think it works. Black just has to pay a little bit more attention to this idea, but at least.
Okay, so let's
I
stop
mean,
here and
that-
think, yeah? If we assume Rook AC8 is a little bit naive and doesn't quite work out tactically, which it seems like it might be true.
Yeah, okay, knight F6 is a kind of a move, maybe, but then even F2, F3.
Yeah, let's kind of restrict it and go from there. So what's happening if we attack this pawn now? Has anything changed?
Kind of did, right? Bishop F4. Well, bishop G5 now is.
Sure,
sort of
G5
a-
is interesting,
sort of
yeah.
an idea.
Sure, G5 is interesting.
So if king G7, knight E3, you can't take C3, and now I'm probably taking D5.
This looks very good. And the only really other move you can make is knight d7, where we can sort of go back, although not quite, right? Because f3 is hanging. Compared to the previous position, in here we now have this choice. But it might still be very dangerous.
No, Rook E7, knight
There's
F6.
knight takes d5. I wanted to play king g2 here. But
Yeah,
knight
me
takes
too,
d5,
but
yeah.
yeah, but there is knight D5.
Yeah, g6 played, and I assume Magnus will just blitz out something, because I think you want to continue kind of impressing upon your opposition that you are very much still in your
Yeah,
prep.
absolutely.
Um,
I'm still missing those good old times, Peter, when the preparation would go, okay, I'll play knight h4. Seems to be an interesting idea. And then your opponent plays g6, and it's not that you're surprised, but you're still not sure what's the next move you'll
Yeah.
make. And you would sit at the board and just think for 40 minutes or something.
yeah, I mean, even if it's equal, like, I don't know if the dreaded dead draw comments have already, and hello Jack if you're watching, if they have already reared their ugly head. And g4 play, yeah, Magnus knows what the suggestions are in this position. Nice work.
Magnus is in a
Yeah,
good
nice
form.
work by Magnus and Team Magnus, I would assume. So yeah, if people are already saying dead draw, they really aren't correct here. This might be
Yeah.
equal, and I would assume this doesn't refute the Petrov and.
Okay, kind of.
But
You know-
yeah, I mean, this is a very sharp endgame. Describing it as a dead draw just because.
Yeah, so equal is not I'm afraid, not the right description, right? Equal is something when, the pawn structure is symmetrical and maybe one has slight initiative, but you know how to stop it. Here, it might be drawish, but it's not equal. I mean, black has the freaking passed pawn.
Yeah.
White places pieces in a really like wrong manner, just probably based on some tactical ideas that.
And yeah, this is what I mean. Z-Term saying, as soon as S says 0-0-0, everyone screams draw. I mean, game could still very easily end in a draw, and I'm not surprised Sese doesn't claim any advantage for white. But, I mean, this is about as sharp an endgame as you can get. Black is sort of strategically winning if they survive the next 5 moves without losing any material, and, white is seemingly launching some kind of an attack with one piece above the first rank. And, why would you dislike this, apart from the fact that the queens are off? No pleasing some people.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't black bishops a lot stronger here than white's? Sort of, yes, which is why we're trying to play knight g2 and bishop f4 and trade it away. Pepushek.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Interesting to see. I mean, Jan played g6 very quickly, but Jan also did not have very much choice in this position because you cannot allow knight f5, and f5 rook e6 also looks like it shouldn't be.
Yeah, you don't actually care if your opponent has prepared it or knows everything. I mean, you just play g6.
Yeah. So, yeah, the fact that this has been played fast doesn't tell us anything, but the length of the pause after g4.
I think he's going to tank massively here, because perhaps knight h4 already is sort of a surprise. Knight
Probably,
h4 already sort of a surprise. And then maybe rook c8 wasn't the worst move ever.
Yeah, we can take a look, because I think it might be kind of... Yeah, it's extremely risky, and I'm wondering if I can even go further than extremely risky, because you're not really threatening to take, because rook e8 will just win. And after knight e3, I think your only move is rook d8.
Okay,
so I want to start with bishop f4 or something.
Honestly, yeah, bishop f4 seems not bad.
Knight e7 check doesn't look horrible.
Can I just, go knight e7 in the most ambitious way? I'm just kind of claiming you are not developing.
Yeah, like how does this guy...
Because
how does this guy come out?
And I actually have a square, like king f8, rook b7. Not to mention bishop a3, but rook b7. And it's a weird setup where my rook on b7 kind of paralyzes.
Yeah, I mean, looks like it might just lose. Looks like you might not be worse, you might be lost here with black, which is not great. And Jan goes knight e7 quite quickly after
knight e7,
g4.
Which is a logical move, but at the same time, it's 99.9% that it's looked upon. So we can expect the further on development from...
Yeah, knight g2 also blitzed out.
From Magnus, and here it comes, knight g2.
And, very curious, because if Jan doesn't actually stop to think, anytime soon, we could get our first quote-unquote perfectly played game in this match, right? Because the assumption is this is equal, you just need to be precise. And, I mean, if you do know the answer here, you just blitz out the answer and the game is probably a draw. But if you don't know the answer, I suspect this is quite tricky. I really do suspect this is not easy at all for black to find all the correct decisions over the board, because this is a messy endgame.
Mods chat into each other.
Absolutely, yeah.
Rook f to c8, plain and simple, and very fast.
Yeah.
So not a to c8, but f to c8. So that after bishop f4...
We have bishop f8 as an option.
Very nice theory that he's going to go bishop f8, but after knight e3, it's still...
Well,
right?
I mean...
now you take.
Now I take, and there's no rook e7, so maybe this is playable.
It is important.
Tridon saying Nepo surprised by knight h4 and g4, not according to the speed with which he is replying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Nepo still in prep, double question mark, so crazy. Also not that crazy, because he has never really been a Petrov player in his entire career. So they prepared the Petrov specifically for this match. So
Bishop A3 question mark after
maybe,
rook C8. Bishop A3.
Hang on a second, let me get the correct position. G6, G4, knight D7.
G4, knight D7, knight goes, rook goes, and bishop A3.
Yeah, you can definitely make an argument for that, just to have the pawn on C3 protected. But yeah, just returning to the previous point, you're much more likely to actually be able to remember your analysis when it's something that you've been drilling into yourself for the last, 6 months or so. And considering how central, let's say, this position is to the whole theory of the bishop d6 Petrov, I am not shocked that they looked at b takes c3 properly. I'm not shocked at all. I just thought maybe Magnus got a kind of a shot in which will require Jan to work over the board. But I am not, like, if it ends up being a line that both of them analyze properly, I will not be shocked at all. I think it's absolutely fair.
That's an interesting, Peter, it's an interesting question in the YouTube chat. Why do people prep Petrov against Magnus when he likes to play endgames anyway? What do you think?
Well,
I think...
it promises equality.
Yeah, that was my argument. It's just people prefer to play good positions instead of bad positions.
I think the answer is kind of very, very down to earth here. It promises equality. It's also, as we're seeing today, in many cases, it has become a very concrete opening. It's not an opening where, machine will say 0, 0, 0, but you still have to play some position with 30 pieces on the board. Very often you will at least, approach situations where positions are solvable. It doesn't really matter if it's an endgame or not, and whether Magnus likes endgames or not. If you know you're equal, and you even know how, which is like an important additional bit of info there.
Yeah, bishop f4 play
instead of bishop f3 play. Yeah.
So you know what? I keep thinking, like, nowadays, with all the top players being kind of well-rounded in every single aspect of the game. Okay, if we are not talking Firouzja and the opposition rule. So that this thing of luring your opponent in a kind of position that he doesn't like should be overrated. I mean, it used to be a thing. Like you would perhaps prefer to play dry endgame against Stahl and perhaps go for a crazy attack against Ulf Andersson. Maybe, I don't know. But nowadays,
I don't know if it's specifically a nowadays thing or just a sort of elite level chess thing. I think it still has some bearing on how you play against some people. But the higher up you go, the fewer weaknesses, glaring weaknesses that you can actually target, you will find in people's games. Like when we're getting to the level of people we're currently watching, expecting them to have aspects of the game completely uncovered is a bit optimistic. But still, I think even though he doesn't really have glaring weaknesses, I still think there are things stylistically which you can choose against Magnus, which I would choose above other things. Like I thought, for instance, and I understood why he made the choice in 2016. I understood that Sergei also has his own strengths and weaknesses, and he was playing to his strength. But I thought, this kind of an extremely dry, technical, non-double-edged contest that Sergei was offering Magnus in pretty much every single game was very much what Magnus also would have wanted out of the match. So, and Jan, I think sample sizes are not huge, so I don't know if we can, make those claims convincingly. But I think Jan is approaching this in the correct manner. He is playing sort of. I keep on wanting to use the phrase "open football," which I'm not even sure if it exists outside of the Russian language, and whether people will know what I mean. But the kind of a goal or
which game you're referring to?
I'm European.
I mean,
European.
The hands football or the foot football.
Yeah, the football.
Not the rugby.
Shots fired at the non-football football. But yeah, I think Jan is very understandably trying to get, in particular with the white pieces, I think he is trying to get positions that are more open and more hand deck. Yeah, no, not the hand deck game. Hand deck game, I don't understand at all.
Terrible.
Yeah. So what do we think about this position now that we've...
We think we need a move after bishop f8, otherwise we just don't know.
I don't think changing the rooks from f8 to a8.
Okay,
I don't think this changes anything.
You get the square on f8, my man.
Yeah.
So maybe it changes something. So rook to
b3 or
b3
d3
to
or
b3
somewhere, yeah, and then knight f8.
Yeah, and knight to f8. And this potentially could be a draw, even though I'm starting to lose pawns.
Yeah. I mean, this might hold, but it feels like you're begging a little bit, so you would like a cleaner solution. Knight b6, I guess you go here. Rook d8 also makes some sense, but I guess you go here. And then we...
Yeah, I think rook d8 just cutting off the knight, and rook a5, rook d4. I don't
Or
think
there's... Yeah, I was kind of choosing between those two options. I wasn't sure which one I like most. Because here I'm a little bit worried about something like rook a8. Yeah.
About the pin on the last rank.
But you can probably just play king g7 and after...
King
and
d7,
now we can start defending
Jack and
f attack.
f4.
Yeah, maybe black is better already. Knight f6, knight e8, and d5 for white there. Let me find the appropriate position. So knight f6, knight e8, and d5.
And the d
And we
pawn.
just start.
Nice,
I'm not
because
sure.
knight on e8 actually protect knight
knight
c7.
c7. Nice, yeah.
It's not the end because rook
But yeah,
a7.
let me start with this then.
You start
Let me
with
not
this.
blunder fork. Even though the fork wasn't winning on the spot, I still would
Wasn't
prefer
winning.
not to blunder
Okay,
the fork.
I'm moving.
Well, this one is not hanging. This one is still hanging, but you can't really protect it in any kind of a attractive manner. I don't know.
So say rook c1.
Oh yeah, rook c1, c7 is a very solid idea.
Yeah.
Like, maybe white gives...
So say you take and it's rook c7. And God knows if you're
I think we're probably
holding
getting
this
mated
one.
here with black.
Apparently
I think
not.
we're probably...
Yeah? Knight f6.
Yeah,
rook
I think we're getting
f7.
mated here as black. Does look like that. Yeah, solid suggestion by chess fan 993. Yeah, bishop takes f4 does seem like it gives white more options, right? So let's try to understand what the plan is after bishop f8.
What the plan is after bishop f8. And we said knight
Yeah,
e3.
I mean, I have a kind of a
take...
strange question. Like, how fast am I obliged to play here? Is there ever time to play rook c1? Because, somewhat shockingly, defending the pawn on d5 is still kind of tricky. My biggest issue is I think bishop a3 is quite strong. Rook c2 and perhaps something like bishop b4. Just continuing to ask questions around the c3 pawn.
Yeah.
I don't know. Rook e1 exists, but I can continue doing the same thing, at least for now.
And then to d1, and then to d3, you know.
Yeah, but eventually I will start maybe this counterplay even.
Yeah, it's like people try to outsmart each other here.
I can go like, I don't know, knight f6 and then a5, a4, a3.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a mess. But if not this, there isn't really a comfortable way apart from rook c1 to protect the pawn on c3, which isn't bishop d2, and I assume we're not playing bishop d2 because we kind of just came from sort of there. Although, I mean, there's...
Okay, we kind of came from c1.
But now maybe I have slightly more time because I can meet both knight f4 and knight e3 with bishop h6 using the pin. So maybe I have an additional tempo here for black to try to stabilize somehow, or just start pushing my own trumps. Just a4, and wherever the knight goes, I just want to play bishop h6 and just trade it off next move.
Yeah, knight e3, bishop h6 looks like a mistake.
Or
from
knight
white
f4, bishop
side.
h6, which is very similar, I think.
Here,
I mean, rook e7 exists, but I'm
it's
not.
kind of at the very least some rook e7.
But I don't
nonsense,
know if I'm
right?
scared about this at all, to be honest. Like, I can do.
Oh well, you should be. No, you
Not
shouldn't.
really. And also, I'm not even forced to take immediately. I can wait for one more move. I can play, I don't know, knight f6 or knight f8 first. Knight f6 is kind of attractive, maybe.
Yeah, I thought knight h5 just for the sake of a tactic. I mean, I'm not sure if it's any good.
Yeah. I mean, there's a number. Yeah, probably the
Number of checks.
the most
cultures.
cold-hearted reply here is just to do this and then take on c3 next move and claim that we are in no universe are black wars there, at least. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Take and take is always an option. Yeah, Jake, it is. We looked at this a bit earlier. Yeah, take and take. You kind of have to have a good square here. We're suspecting it's b3. d3 maybe can be argued for, but it might be very similar. It's that position that we were discussing just a bit earlier. And
yeah, it's like check.
And the thing is, the rook on
check,
d3 still doesn't stop d5. So I don't know what we have achieved.
Yeah, it's somehow strangely the black pieces are very
and
badly placed.
white is,
I mean,
yeah,
as
white is
simple
two
as
moves
that.
away from more or less winning the game.
Okay,
we can start pushing. Maybe
let's just try the race. Yeah, a4, rook c1, a3, rook c7, a2, black wins.
Does they? I mean, yeah, king h8. Does they is very good English.
King h8, rook f7, queen,
and queen takes f6, I guess. Yeah.
And queen takes f6. So interestingly, if not for queen f6, let's imagine black pawns on d4. I wouldn't be surprised. No, okay, there is rook a7.
Rook h3 maybe wins,
there is
unfortunately, and then queen f1 check.
Yeah, okay. No, but anyway,
we got slightly overexcited here.
That's
yeah, I think
too much. But it's just to illustrate how dangerous the combo of two rooks on 7th rank at the knight 6 is. So that even with extra queen, it's not given that black is winning.
Yeah. So. Yeah, maybe you can try something like this. Maybe you can go. I'm still not convinced rook d3 is so much stronger than rook b3. They are very similar, and they're trying to achieve the same thing: attack one of the weaknesses while the knight goes to f8. Important just not to choose this square, because then knight takes b6 will be a little bit painful. So yeah, we're choosing either this or this square, and then we're going to f8, and yeah, it might be. Yeah, not only might it be playable, but we're probably also seeing it now that Jan has taken on f4, because yeah, now he doesn't really have any choice. Knight f6 g5 appears to be losing kind of by force, because in this position there's a fork coming. So yeah, looks like Jan is just going into this endgame. This is already on the board. Magnus basically playing on increment, pretty much.
Yep. Takes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, takes, and draw in this particular case.
The match is fixed. Yeah. More claims like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. I mean, and in the retrospect, like all the Cup of Kasparov matches are obviously fixed. And with the weirdest devilish scenarios that you have to win on demand in game 24 or something.
Yeah.
People love those. Yeah, the Earth's flat after all.
Yeah, very many things
theories.
that we have been brought up to believe that are true are untrue. And yeah, unfortunately, I will mix up the names of the dinosaurs. But recently, that's not one of those things I was just referring to. But recently, I saw this little factoid somewhere that a certain species of dinosaurs is closer to us in time than to another species of dinosaurs. And it kind of blew my mind.
Dude, speaking of the time, 1990, it wasn't that long ago, but now we are further away from 1990 than the Beatles when they assembled in 1960. Pardon me.
Yeah, those, and I think that the person who said that 2005 was 16 years ago was also doing some kind of a meme along those lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, Magnus.
Dinosaurs aren't real. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
precisely.
Have you seen a dinosaur? No.
No.
So how do you
Yeah,
know it's real? It's not
and the
made
bones
up.
obviously were planted by the deity to confuse the future humans and then just enjoy the mayhem. Moving swiftly on. Magnus clearly is still in his prep, and honestly, in a position like this, I would, despite Jan having spent already more than half an hour, I would suspect even he is still in book, because I don't think you can take a decision like bishop takes f4 at the speed that decision was taken, or rook d3 over rook b3, for instance, unless you actually know. He is just, because perhaps he did not repeat it specifically this morning, he's just taking some time to refresh his memory. Rook d3 played, rook e7 played, so we have been on reasonably good form today, guessing what will transpire. Knight f8 is just mathematically the only move you can even play. So.
Okay. Could it be that we are missing some hidden ideas for white?
Certainly, I don't know. I mean, as is often the case, we're missing the ideas, but we don't know what they are because we are missing them.
Yeah, we're missing those ideas. Yeah. So knight takes
knight
b6.
b6, I guess rook b8 now, right?
Rook b8 should be just.
And I mean, this is clearly better than b3 and d8 because the knight is hanging. Like, if we want one rook on this file and one rook on this file as a black, this is of course
that's
this is exactly how you
do
should
it,
be doing it, because now the knight is hanging. Who is discussing Reynard and why? I'm trying to figure out why we suddenly started discussing Reynard. But I'm always up for some Reynard discussions.
Yeah, knight f6, knight e8, d5, maybe that's exactly what we were trying to look at.
Yeah.
And that seems to be...
Yeah, I still like knight f6 check better here than knight takes b6. I just don't know where you go from here with white. Like, the rook takes d4 also attacks the g4 pawn.
I mean, you can go home, knight d7.
Yeah, knight d7 just doesn't really offer you any winning chances, I think.
Go king g2.
Yeah.
And...
I mean, you can still try for some rook c1, c7. Black will always have enough counterplay. Yeah. So we assume there's still the knight f6, knight e8, and then something here. We can go d5. We can also I wanted to say we can also go rook c1, c7 without the d pawn, but that shouldn't work because at the very least I can have rook f4 here.
You probably call
of course. Exactly. Yeah, of course.
So just
take with the check and go rook f4. Apparently this position is sort of well known, says Chess as Win. Lots of people on Twitter claiming this is part of analysis. Those two things are not the same. It clearly is very much part of Magnus's analysis and probably even Jan's. That does not mean this position is well known. It's well known to them, and they are. Two very strong players playing a world championship match. They are a very small subset of general population.
Is there any good copy pasta about draws at World Chess Championship? Twitch chat's asking. Let's create one.
Yeah, we trust you.
Why should we copy pasta other people's copy pasta? That's not how it has to be done.
Is there any hope they chop the pot in the next 2 hours? I even know why Betsyid is asking, and I'm also kind of curious now.
Let me see.
Rook a4. Yeah, rook a4 is a move I didn't consider, but feels to me that... hang on a second. If I go rook d8, then we can switch to the previous idea, right? And maybe we can get some rook f4 here. And I'm not sure... yeah, probably just isn't. I was going to say maybe this just holds because the b5 pawn might fall. But the fact that the f7 pawn falls is just much, much more important. Rook a4.
How did you get there? Sorry, got
Yeah,
distracted.
I played a move Twitch chat suggested, which is rook a4 here.
Which is what
Absolutely,
you have to
yeah.
do you do this or a couple of checks in this?
I kind of like preserving the option of taking on b6. I don't know.
Some reason I thought.
We can also.
Maybe I shouldn't have.
We can also try the other way around.
No, I mean, I thought rook a4, knight e6, and kind of making an argument for king f8 after a check.
So rook a4.
So it's got rook a4, knight e6, yeah, and if you try to go check, maybe king f8. Even though rook d7 and god.
No, but you can go king g7 and then you cannot even give a check from e8, right? Because of king f8.
Yeah, king g7 and then king f8, of course, yeah. So if you want those two checks, you better go for them now, yeah?
Also kind of interesting that Magnus is pausing now for the first time in the game, because this position is... We've arrived here more or less by force.
Alarming for Jan in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's a very, very forcing line, which I believe if you go as Magnus for this line, it's specifically because it's a forced line with some kind of a draw at the end. So it doesn't give your opponent a lot of liberty. Right, because it's kind of strategic basement is not that... I mean, it's a bit shaky from White's perspective. I mean, strategically, okay, there's nothing more strategically left here. But what I'm trying to say is perhaps... it's not that many moves that keep it within the draw margin for black, even though I would not expect rook d3 to be that bad.
Yeah, rook d3 seemed very logical. But yeah, the fact that he is thinking is, as you said, yeah, I was slightly surprised when you said it, and then I thought, yeah, it's absolutely right, yeah. As Jan, you're there thinking, like, why isn't he blitzing anymore? Have I made a mistake? Because there's just no way up to here isn't still analysis.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you are like on 1 hour 50, right?
Impossible up to there isn't still very much in book. So Magnus taking his time here is a little bit of a surprise. Knight f6, g5, rook c1 ideas, says keep your cool. g5, let me take this. There's also knight e6 straight away. But okay, if I just take and then go... Rook c7 is a very large threat here.
But knight e6?
Yeah, I'm wondering if...
I thought you could have taken, but...
Yeah, I started by trying to...
Do we believe in it seriously? I mean, it might be like you're making it... Do you actually?
I'm not even sure there's a draw here for white, yeah, because if you take with the knight, the king runs away to d8 and the checks run out.
Yeah, that's certainly not a draw.
Now the a pawn probably will just win the game for black, right? That's actually, yeah, and I'm ready to...
Rook d8,
I'm ready to play rook d8 after the check. And if you take with the rook straight away, black can play, I guess, rook a d8, and it might require some work to win this with black, but white is not. I mean, you can play h4 here and pretend you have a very
But I mean, you're never playing this for a win. Let's agree on this. It doesn't make all that much sense.
You're trying to make a draw here with white, and maybe you do, but you're not really fighting for advantage. So how did we get here? One sec. So rook d3, rook e7, knight f8, knight f6, king g7. We played g5, rook d4, rook c1, knight e6. Is there anything smarter here than this exchange sack? I mean, you obviously cannot afford to allow knight takes g5. Your position will just completely...
Yeah, like you're a pawn down and about to be two.
Yeah, I don't see it, because we can't support the pawn on g5 because the rook is ideally placed to fight against it. Doesn't seem to work. So we go...
Yeah, so we absolutely have to go with two checks. And then rook a4 again, right?
We tried rook a4, we tried d5.
But what was the other? Once again, I'm kind of missing. So rook a d5 something.
Yeah, we just tried.
wasn't-
Yeah, we went for the
Ooh.
race with black.
Yeah, but that's why rook a4.
Mm-hmm.
So which kind of still keeps d5 on the list of priorities. But
Maybe I can afford to
stops
play
the-
96 here.
same with king
Yeah,
of
I'm threatening
fade
king of fade,
ideas.
which is a big problem. Yeah.
Bother. Yeah. Yeah, so d5, yeah, including after d5.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
play
This
king
is
of
kind of
fade.
very because allowing
That's
rook
the
f4
most-
would be like knight c5
The most
rook f4 might just be winning for white, but we're not getting there because black instantly attacks this group of people, and white is in trouble, I think.
It certainly is, yeah.
So you get here, and you have to find a way to proceed because the a pawn is running quite quickly. On the other hand, yeah, I don't even want to continue that sentence. I like the idea of just quietly allowing a3 and a2 and then proceeding as if nothing happened is kind of giving me vertigo.
Yeah, like the a pawn might not be all that scary. I mean, what I don't like that my d pawn's not
Exactly,
going
like
anywhere.
you can push.
Right, it's kind of a pawn is enough to keep my rook busy, so the second rook doesn't join,
Mhm.
and then the d pawn, rook behind the d
Mhm.
pawn, basically stops.
And
all
eventually
the
the
idea.
pieces will start coming out. Like if you play d6 in particular, you're once again inviting some kind of knight d6 king of 8 counterplay. And more importantly, exactly what you're saying, I'm just not sure what white is aiming for. You can play d7 maybe, but there is still no threat. Is there? Maybe knight f6 and rook e8 is a threat now. Huh. Okay.
Rook a4 once again, just like this rook a4 move for white and for black.
Yeah, we seem to be using it quite a bit. It seems like a very strong option here because somewhat weirdly we have removed a piece which was protecting d8, but the fact, yeah,
And that's why I stopped.
but the fact that rook e8 here doesn't attack anything that is there just allows us to play knight takes d7 with the winning endgame. So yeah, rook a4 looks very attractive here.
kind of serves quite a few purposes. I mean, I'm kind of attacking g4 and rook d4. Yeah. I mean, if I'm too scared of this pawn, I can play rook d4, and then
Yeah,
it makes 100% sure this pawn's not moving.
yeah, and in the rival studios, people are saying Fabi is very unimpressed with Magnus's opening idea.
Okay.
Well, I mean, he is allowed to because he actually does have opening
Yeah,
ideas.
exactly what I
Yeah.
wanted to say. I mean, out of all the people, I mean, nearly all the people who are attempting to commentate on this match, Fabi's one of the few who is entitled
Yeah, exactly.
to
Like
have
if
on Magnus's
he and
preparation.
Vishy are unimpressed, they are entitled to their opinion. I am not expressing any such opinion because I stopped having opening ideas quite some time ago. So yeah,
Yeah, Fabi's a Petrov specialist. I mean, I don't know if specialist, but he knows a thing or two. Having the Petrov played against Magnus himself.
So why not rook a e1 instead of rook c1 after d5 a4? So what's the plan here? With the brew. Hang on a
It's a
second.
little
Let me
bit of a...
get there correctly. So we go rook a1, but how are we creating any threats here? Winterbrew.
Yeah, it's kind of a3. Nah.
Like we're just not getting there in time. I don't see how we generate a single threat. We probably still have a perpetual, but apart from that, I don't see it. And honestly, with the pawn on a3, black might become interested in king h6. It's a bit risky, but I can definitely imagine this becoming something that is attractive with the pawn running.
Yeah, could run far away. Okay, I mean, knight c7, I would be still... Yeah, but I don't think we have to analyze it seriously.
Yeah, that line "keep your cool" is giving in chat. We actually looked at this, and I don't think you play king g7. I think you play king h8 in that line. So that line goes like this: rook c1, a3, rook c7. Also, I will point out that in this position you have to consider rook f3, but maybe rook a7 is strong. So let's play a2, knight f6, king h8, so that this is not a check. And then we give a check, and as we pointed out, there is like a prosaic solution of taking on f6 and taking on d5, and there is what I assume is the more concrete winning solution, which is rook h3, protecting the pawn on h7, and when white takes, I think black probably gives mate here, with queen f1 and then rook a3. I don't think this works. I mean, I'm pretty sure this doesn't work, actually. Like I can go stronger than that and say I'm pretty sure this does not work for white. And rook h3 is actually, if you want to win the game, is probably actually kind of required, because I'm not sure, like I suspect white might save this position, which would be quite annoying for a position with a queen up and our move.
Yeah.
Like, considering we're a full queen up here, you kind of want to make sure you're not missing any wins. Why did Magnus go for this if all the lines give him trouble? He has an immediate bailout, Schnebler, we assume, by just continuing to give those checks. I don't think you can go to h6 with the pawn still on a5. This looks mighty risky. Now I probably will play rook e, something like rook e1 on knight c7, rook f7, and the king on h6 might become a very serious issue. So yeah,
that's a liability to play king h6. I mean, knight d6,
knight d6 as well. Yeah. Like you're not doing so well so that you can afford to avoid the threefold. So yeah, Magnus now he's still very safe. It's just that if he decides that he has more than the perpetual with knight f6, knight e8, knight f6, then he might be in trouble. Overpressing is definitely something that can happen here. But so far he is in no danger.
There's a question from Banana Chess. Does black have any winning chances when playing the Petrov at this level? And I would get rid of some words in this question, because does black have any winning chances when playing at this level would be a bit more appropriate. More or less. I mean, if white doesn't want to let you play for a win, nah. Yeah. I mean, it's not the sharpest opening, of course, right? From black's perspective, it's not the sharpest opening. But
I don't think it's any worse than, like, you can argue that something like a Sicilian gives you more winning chances, but I think it also very much depends on what mood your opponent is in, because there's a lot of extremely forcing lines in the Sicilian, or the bishop b5 check if you're trying to play the knight or f4. Why all of the games are drawing? Because these are very, very strong players who are also extremely well prepared, because they care about the event they're playing in, so they have invested time and effort to build an opening repertoire.
Honestly, we keep talking about this, what's called the Shannon number, right? Of variations in chess, and how chess is such a complex game and we still don't know, computers cannot solve it and so on. But the idea that you might end up being two knights up, or the h-pawn and the wrong bishop up at the end, and still you won't win the game, kind of suggests that the game itself is probably a draw if played correctly. Yeah. And those are perhaps the best players in the world for now. So shouldn't be a surprise.
There's generally no issue at all about the overabundance of draws outside of this one particular competition for the last 3 cycles, and that's because people playing these matches are very, very evenly matched. Apologies for that sentence, and also because of variance, obviously, because I think, let's say, if you take the Fabi match in 2018, if Magnus wins game 1, where he was like +5 by move 35 with black, or -5 if you want to be more precise, since he was playing black there.
Yeah, is knight b6 a bad
Not
move?
a bad move.
We are asked once again. We looked at it. Yeah, it's like it's not a bad move. In fact, I mean, it's probably a move which leads to a draw, as we believe any other move in this position
Yeah,
does.
currently.
It's just that it doesn't put any pressure on black. So black plays rook b8, and perhaps the best you can do is to go back to d7. Sorry, to go to d7, and then it's traded. And
Yeah,
and
seems
rook
like
b5.
pieces will just come off and it will be very level. Neil MacDonald in the book I'm reading describes Petrov as a turgid opening. I don't think any of that is true. I don't think, in particular, the bishop d3, bishop d6 lines get very, very wild in a lot of cases. And I can show you some neither of positions which by my count aren't very exciting. And somebody asked why is Jan avoiding sharp openings. This is really the first game in the match where he played what would be described as a non-sharp opening. Really, he played knight f6, e6, d5 in the first game, and then went for one of the main lines of the Catalan. Maybe not the most exciting line of the Catalan, but a perfectly sensible line. And he played, I think, quite ambitiously with white in both game 1 and game 3. So yeah, I don't understand the complaints so far, not at all. Betsy is saying I'd rather watch Berlin than Petrov. No, cannot be me. I prefer Petrov to Berlin any day of the week. I think Petrov is actually quite an exciting opening. It's just that people currently don't really know how to.
Is there anything, Peter? Sorry to interrupt. Is there anything that you would rate
below Berlin,
quote unquote, more boring than
London?
The Berlin? So I would say,
London,
London, the Berlin. Okay, it's much better than.
Yeah, I mean, I still hate London more than I hate the Berlin, but
yeah. The London, I mean, it's strange. I mean, it's so many people picked it up, right? And it's, on the other hand, it's one of the most hated things ever.
Yeah, and I mean, it's obviously a bit of a meme by this point, in particular, since I'm currently, in the process of writing an opening course on the London. Much worse than that. I'm actually currently in the process of covering the London for the the multitudes of chess players.
Not that it wasn't previously
who
covered.
will of course flock at the opportunity of knowing exactly what I have to say about this very, very exciting opening. But London is playable. I just kind of hate it so much as somebody who has to face it every now and again. Apart from that, there's not really that much wrong with the opening. It's just I personally have a problem with it. What else is there to say? Knights are demons. We are also kind of surprised there is such a long pause here from Magnus. I don't quite understand how that happens. It's a bit confusing to me. Knight f6 finally played as we've expected. So the game either ends in the next 3 minutes, or
I suspect I know why it's such a long
Tell
pause.
me.
I mean, he probably decided to go check and check and check.
Yeah, but what is he comparing that option to, and why hasn't he done that at home? Is the question up in the air, so to speak, right now? Is not whether knight f6 is a good move or anything like that. It's just, it seems extremely probable all of this is on file, and you don't stop here, as Knights of Demons absolutely correctly stated. It's just, in the current day and age, there is no way you stop your analysis here. You have to continue, because it's a very sharp endgame where it's kind of important what's the outcome. What about d5 after knight e8, king g8? We've I assume you weren't here a bit earlier. We've looked at this, And we currently don't know what to do about the very simple plan of just starting your own counterplay with the outside passer. Black doesn't really have a particularly good way to solve the issue of the d-pawn, but the d-pawn isn't really going very far. You can get it up to d7, but it doesn't make that final most important step. The black pieces are very well equipped to stop it from reaching d8, and we currently don't know why white would even be remotely. I mean, after a2 maybe, but we like rook a4 here, I think, the most.
Yeah.
And we don't know.
You know what? Remember we wanted to play g5 at some point.
Yeah, we had some lines with
So
g5.
so why don't we play g5 with a pawn still on d5? Because at least the pawn can be
Okay, so
taken.
we go g5 here, they go a3.
For whatever reason, right? I mean, I'm just trying to kind of assemble the puzzle. So g5, black doesn't care, play a3. Is there a chance we have a move here? Some sort of a move.
I mean, we can play something slow, like king g2 or h4
King
or
G2.
something. I just don't know what that does. My biggest issue is I just don't understand what any of that does.
King g2, a2, rook e2.
Ah.
I mean,
If a2,
a2,
yes,
of course.
exactly. And let me
You are not
let me play this first.
Harry 3, perhaps. Oh no, wait. Can I give a check now? Knight f6, king g7, and my king's on g2, so rook c1.
Okay.
Bravely.
And a2 rook c7 might actually work here. Yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm getting excited
Yeah.
about
And
the prospects of checkmate.
in the meantime, the knight is on e8, and Jan is thinking. So a2 rook c7, this probably is actually mate, even though.
Yeah, rook g4, knight
you
g4 still.
still give mate there. A1 queen.
Yeah, knight h6
A1
check.
queen.
Yeah.
I mean, both work, but this is actually mate, which is better.
That's an actual mate.
So okay, so you played king g2.
In order to show off, Peter, I'm sorry. No, it's better not to show off. I wanted to take on h7 and give a check on c8 in this final position.
That would be
that's
that
how
would
you
be a
want
bit
it.
too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
So you played, let's say, king g2 here. I don't know if rook a4 is required. So a2, you wanted to play rook e2.
Rook e2.
But this probably
I have
is a draw, right?
No idea. This does look.
Because you will
like
take
a
on a2
draw,
and I
yeah.
will take on d5, and I assume I'm not losing this position. Yeah.
Unless, like knight
Hang on a second,
c7, you'll
rook
have
a8.
rook c.
But I can take on g5 and then jump away with this knight, I guess.
Move
Or
the
maybe king
horse,
f8
yeah.
is good enough. To have king e7.
King f8. Yep.
Okay.
And it might not be a draw, but he will not like
exactly.
it with white.
So, what about? What about this then? I don't know. I'm kind of trying to make a better version of the same, but I don't know if it's better or worse. This kind of invites rook a4 much stronger than the previous line was inviting rook a4.
Yeah.
Rook takes e8 after knight e8 already hasn't been played. I kind of considered it. It's a very valid question because you can take on e8 and take on d4, and this is threatened, and then maybe we go after this one. But the issue is, this is not a winning try anyway.
Yeah, you never win such positions. I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah, it's not a winning try anyway, so why even get involved if you think you're completely fine after king g8?
Yeah, like with the bishop, right? So 2 pawns and the bishop.
Yeah.
I'd be much more kind of ambitious, so to say, bishop on c5, or you've taken on b5 and your bishop's on e6, something like that.
And here, I guess the problem
really
might be something like the move rook b8, and in this position after knight d7, rook b7, rook d4, and let's say rook ac1, you might have to give up the pawn on b6, and then you might actually, every now and again you will actually lose that position. And then you will ask yourself, why didn't I just play king g8 and not got involved with it altogether? Will Magnus repeat once? Would you? I mean, he has plenty of time. Normally when you repeat in a position like this, it's to kind of lessen the impact of the future time
he
travel.
might repeat more than once, I'm afraid.
But here you either actually just repeat or you don't at all. You can
repeat as in force a draw.
You could make an argument that it's just sort of good business sense to just get in one repetition or like the second repetition just to get it closer to the time control, regardless of whether you expect time travel or not. But I mean, people have differing opinions on this. I probably don't repeat here unless I actually
repeat once in a winning position to assert
Yeah.
dominance. I mean, that's how it's been through age.
And actually, I was watching the MVL Caruana speed chess match yesterday, and Danya told a story about well, it sounded like one of the most heartbreaking stories of his entire career, that he had a very beautiful combination and he wanted to repeat to get to move 40 and then kind of recheck. And as he was doing that, he realized he forgot he already repeated once, and his opponent claimed a draw. And to make things worse, apparently his coach came up to him after the game and said, I was planning to send this game to like magazines and stuff, and now you've ruined all of that, you less than entirely smart person. So sounded very unpleasant. Moral of the story is ex-Russian coaches are the best. Always go for ex-Russian coaches. And also never repeat moves because maybe you miscounted and it's a third.
I thought there was no moral to this story. I mean, it was just a sad, coincidence.
There's always a moral. It doesn't always make sense, but there's always a moral. If the Duchess has taught us anything at all, it's that.
By the way, let's make it an educational stream while we are waiting for Magnus to decide and repeat finally. Let's make it an educational stream. It's not that long ago that I've learned, so not always you have to kind of write down the move before claiming a draw. Do you know that?
I think my Discord taught me something about chess recently, but that was about a 5-fold. I think if you repeat 5 times, you don't even have to call the arbiter.
Nah. In the rules, it's like if you can repeat 3 times, or the position has repeated 3 times already. And now I thought, okay, we'll make a few nonsensical moves here. But, okay. You know what? We had king on g7 and knight on e8, right? So go knight f6, king g7, knight e2. Knight e8, yeah. 2 times. King h8, knight f6, king g7, white played knight e8.
Okay.
How does black... I mean, that's a 3 times, the position repeated 3 times. But black player, not exactly the smartest person. He once went king h8 and once king g8. He is allowed to claim a draw, but he cannot play a move which keeps the 3-fold repetition. I'm pretty sure he's allowed to claim a draw, kind of stating to the arbiter that this...
The current position is a 3-fold. That should be how things work, which is not obvious.
Yeah, that's exactly how things work. I mean, at least according to reputable arbiters. Sarcasm detected that I was asking.
Nizahi says black can't claim a draw here, as far as I know, but...
I'm sure he can.
Yeah, but, I mean, I would not pass an arbiter exam. I'm pretty sure that I would actually need to study up before I could become a qualified arbiter, if I ever, was possessed by such an unhealthy desire. But, I mean, common sense suggests it should be possible to claim a draw when the 3-fold is already on the board, but...
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know the answer, and I mean, I would trust you, but when the choice for me is between trusting you and trusting Nizahi, I am obviously in a horrible quandary.
I think there was even an example of, it was a bit different. It's like the perpetual check. So black gives queen d3 check to the king on d1, and then once it goes to e1, once it goes to c1, right? and black continues like queen e3, queen d3, queen c3, queen d3, and all of a sudden what it realizes, so that if he goes king e1 once again, there is queen e2 checkmate, and if king c1, it's queen c2 checkmate. But the position has actually repeated 3 times, and I think it is a draw, right? So I mean, you can't really repeat it.
And Shansky says that the default way of claiming a draw is to call an arbiter and tell them, if I make this move, the position will have repeated 3 times. You also sort of are supposed to write the move down on your score sheet. But yeah, you call an arbiter and you say, after this specific move I can make, this is the third.
Yeah, that's brilliant. If you repeat 25 times, you can claim threefold along with the 15 moves rule.
Yeah. No, but apparently somewhat...
And also insufficient material, Parin. I mean, because you have to repeat with, like, the bishops of the same color and nothing else.
Lorinda says, I saw a recent game with a tenfold repetition. What are the commentators' thoughts on that? The commentators would decline to comment. And Magnus does not repeat even once. Well played to that man.
Very enough.
And goes d5 as we've expected. Why does the move have to be written down first to display? Yeah, it's a very archaic rule. I don't know exactly why it has to be
a thing of the past, kind of
written down together with verbalized. But yeah, I think that's what the handbook says, so we go with that. Technically, probably yes, Kahisin, but I don't think it's something we need to worry about. The knight f3, knight f6, knight g1, knight g8 scenario. I have a feeling this is not something we need to lose too much sleep over.
Okay, chat, you probably do have, I mean, at least some of you do have an arbiter to ask.
Yeah,
so please
absolutely. Yeah, and Steve Giddens told me I don't eat enough to be an arbiter. That's because you actually haven't seen me eat very much, I think.
Okay, Article 9.2b, as correctly stated by the Twitch chat. Twitch chat's always right. Says that you can claim and not write down your next move if the position has repeated 3 times.
Even if your repetition claim is wrong, you have to play the indicated move. I think that is partly why they have to make you write it down, says Steve. This is I didn't
to make sure you're not.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And that's actually useful information.
Eating stream when?
Guys, it has to be moved to a different platform. I think Twitch is moving away from this kind of content, and
towards bathing
rightly
streams.
so.
You mean?
Anyway, we like a4 here. Is there anything else we like apart from generating?
Oh, Nizahia is asking the right question. But yeah, but we are on World Championship match here.
What can you do? Yeah. Give them swords. Give them swords, I said. They will not abuse it, I said.
You're on the other Levitov's channel. What happened?
What happened?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I mean, I hope it's like... I mean, but with new caps, tragedy, it's a little bit...
Yeah, I don't really want to start clicking and watching the Russian stream. I really hope everybody is okay. I think Sasha is supposed to be on in the Russian studio today, so it should be a very good day to watch the Russian channel. Ask Sasha, says KZY. I can't. He's on air, and I'm also on air, so it's a bit of a problem right now. We're asking you. Let me try and find your question, Chess fan, and maybe I know the answer.
Does knight c7 offer anything?
What happens if your opponent has only one queen on the board and you take it, but run out of time before pressing the clock? yeah, that's one of those arbiter questions where.
Yeah, that's one of those things, by the way, that'll be easy, and probably the Twitch chat's gonna know, as well as the YouTube chat. But do you know what happens if, because they really like, when you are flagged, when your time ran out, they really like to describe it like if it's possible with the most unqualified play or something, like if you can win with the most unqualified play or whatever, if it's possible by rules of chess that you're winning. And I've managed to construct a position where it's not like checkmate in 1 and checkmate in 2, but the series of only legal moves from both sides. Let's say you ran out of time, but the position is such that you have to play a move, it's forced, and your opponent has to play a move, it's forced. I mean, basically exchanging like check, counter check, and so on and so on, leads to a checkmate to your opponent. What's the result?
I don't know.
Funny enough, it's a draw. That's what I was told. So you'd expect, it's not a checkmate next move. I've lost on time, so I've lost. Some people would say no, but by rules of chess, your opponent just has to be checkmated. So he lost. But no, in fact, it's a draw. Which is strange. And you still went to check what happens, right?
How could I not? I mean, when people use the word tragedy, I become very.
Yeah, it's better not, guys. I mean, if you could.
Yeah, I don't know. Something weird appears to have happened, but I don't know what it was. But
draw by checkmate. Yeah, exactly.
And also, I'm kind of waiting for Jan to make a decision here because. If it's not a4 here, it's something that we're clearly missing, because I really don't like anything else. I mean, maybe you can make an argument for a move like rook c8 here, just so that you deny this file for...
The rook c1 thing, okay.
It's not a move that really aims to do very much, it's just a move that wants to more or less forever prevent white from going for rook c1, rook c7.
Yeah, but how about the notorious ladya a4 idea?
Yeah.
Which is rook a4.
Yeah, rook a4 might become very, very troublesome.
So your problem is rook f3 runs into king g2, and there's not enough squares on the
and rook f3 in general is not a move I particularly want to make, but specifically this is just very, very annoying, because now it's difficult to even support it. It's kind of...
So it's kind of strange, but the rook on c8, apart from...
Rook a4 might be very strong.
From covering the c file, it's not clear what it does.
Yeah, and he has played a4 as we sort of expected, because it's a kind of a strange position where it looks like there should be a lot you could try doing, but apart from pushing the a-pawn down the board, very few things make any kind of logical sense. Very strange to reject the repetition and go into this dangerous line, says Nikos. I assume he found something here that he assesses as, at the very least, not being worse for him. Because Magnus, it's not that he never loses objectivity, during chess games, and I think, if the match continues staying level, or if Jan at some point wins a game, I think Magnus will start changing things up just because things aren't doing very well. But in general, he is one of the more objective players around, and he wouldn't play on if he thought his option to play on leads him into trouble. And also, when we say that there's not when we say that there's not much apart from a4 that Black can even play, it also, I think, informs your decision when you think about this position with White, because you can't really expect a mistake, since there's really not very much else Black can even play. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure he has some opinion about this position which differs from ours. And I'm curious to know what he's basing it on.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, people keep h4 here, but how is it different from people say
H4, yeah, but
h4
what's the follow-up?
here?
He can probably still repeat now, but with the pawn on a4, it's... Yeah, I think when it gets to a3, you really are asking a little bit too much of the position to take the repetition then. But probably right now he can still go back to knight f6, knight e8. King h6 probably remains very risky. Even though, I mean, it definitely is more attractive with the pawn closer to the... Maybe not, actually. Actually, it's hanging here, so it's not more attractive.
Here, I thought you go rook a5, but
even
then,
rook f7,
rook f7
yeah.
and the knight
Yeah.
is trapped all of a sudden. And the a pawn, it's still not promoting.
So yeah, I think yeah, he can definitely still bail here without really running any risks at all. Or so it appears. But if it gets to a3, this is where, Black definitely can start thinking about not taking the repetition anymore.
a4 is move 27, so yeah, okay. You mean like no time trouble whatsoever? Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of time. Yeah. I think there might be a little bit too much joy in you. I mean, honestly, I don't think it's an us problem. It seems more like a you problem.
Okay, Peter. Beg your pardon, but could you let me go
Sure,
for
absolutely,
a couple of
yeah.
minutes? Because it seems like I had a bit too much tea,
Absolutely, yeah, and
yeah, that's an unusual drink I'm drinking, and therefore not kind of can't always control the consequences. So can we
sure,
can
absolutely,
we do
yeah.
something about it, or just stream the chair?
No, I can go to this view for sure. Yeah, we're not entirely sure what else to do here with white, and this is why I am the current dead air on stream is basically caused by the fact that I don't know what to say about this position that we haven't said already. There is still definitely a repetition. With the pawn on a4, there is definitely still a repetition available here with knight f6, knight e8. The logical follow-up to d5 is, of course, to play d6, but I don't know why white would assume they are better in this position at all, because I think the a3 pawn is just generally more dangerous than the pawn on d6. Miro will be back. Have no fear, King Bird. Miro is not gone for long. We actually can't have a draw before Peter himself goes on break, though. I think the fact that only Miro is on break is reducing the probability of Magnus repeating with knight f6, knight e8 here quite dramatically. Izaki is right. Some people are speculating that Caruana or Ding would have taken the chances that Nepo missed so far. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, all of those types of conversations are, I think, just kind of entirely pointless, because you also have to ask if maybe they wouldn't have generated the chances that Nepo has missed so far. Yeah, I just don't know if it's a useful conversation to have. Because I mean, they're not playing this match. Jan is, and Magnus is playing against Jan the way perhaps he wouldn't have been playing against Caruana or Ding. In particular, if we talk about game 2, I think yes, Jan may have missed a chance or two during game 2, but the position he got, which was probably quite suspect to begin with, and then quite good for a while, and then equal, I mean, I wouldn't say I just don't believe that game could have been a game between Magnus and Ding, but I think it's less likely. I think, that's not how those equations work. You can never really make any serious claims about EV missed in the previous games, for instance. Even if your tournament consists of a multitude of missed opportunities, you can't really claim that your actual proper expected result in that tournament was, I don't know, +5 instead of the -1 you scored. Because things would have been different if you had taken the first one of them, and also, it's just kind of a pointless conversation to have, in my opinion, in general. Hey Peter, do you think they are going to play the Grunfeld at any point? And also, huge fan of your username, the Legend27. Very, very much appreciated to see a legend such as yourself here in chat. I think what we've seen in Game 2 is a very strong indication that Grunfelds are unlikely. But, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out completely, but I think Jan, and also Game 4 as well, because Jan playing the Petrov today instead of let's say the Najdorf, I think does give you some sort of a clue as to what the general strategy for this match is for the black games when Jan is playing the black pieces. So I think Grunfeld is unlikely, which is honestly a pity, because I think Jan is a very, very interesting Grunfeld player, and I very much like watching him play the opening, because I've learned quite a bit from the way he approached the Grunfeld in recent years. I think it would have been very interesting to see them contest it, but I think it's a very solid decision not to do that, because if something goes wrong, Grunfeld does kind of collapse much more if something goes badly wrong than, let's say, the Catalan or the Ragozin or, I don't know, Queen's Gambit Declined. We don't really know what Jan is planning to play if Magnus goes for the main lines instead of the Catalan. Knight f6 check played. I assume Jan is not at the board, because King h8 really is not a move you can make here, I would suspect, because something like this doesn't really look like you're playing for a win with black. So I assume Jan will come back to the board and play King g7, and then we might have things wrap up quite quickly, or Magnus will repeat once, and he just instantly goes g5, doesn't even repeat once. Let me let you back in there.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Miro. And
Also, I'm back, and g5. I think people in the chat suggested g5, and we were not. Oh no. I think it was d6, g5 something with the knight on e8, and here, yeah, I think we also looked.
Chess fan was saying rook e8, rook a7, g5. But my question would be, after rook e8, can't I take and play king h6? But maybe I get mated somehow. I don't know. This looks logical to me. Like, if I can do this, I would prefer this to rook a7, just to get some pieces off the board. And I assume rook a4, rook e5 is a very, very easy draw for black. But I don't know. Yeah, he played g5 straight away though. So let's try to figure out what he's aiming for after, let's say, a3. Evening, John. Nice seeing you here. And thank you for the kind words. I assume it's a3. I mean, I wanted to say you can try, digging the white king side out a little bit with h6. But my issue with h6 is I'm not sure I want to provoke white into going knight e8 and gh, because that might not be stupid at all, with the threat of knight f6 check and rook takes f7. So, I mean, h6 would have made, I think, reasonable amount of sense if we were absolutely assured white will reply with h4. because getting some squares for the black king might be useful. Just generally weakening the g5 pawn for the future might be useful. Having knight h7 options for the future might be useful. But I don't know if we like the idea of knight a8 check here at all, and I suspect we don't. As black, I mean.
Yeah. Is there ever a chance? Nah, I mean, I don't even want to start it. Like taking on e8 once again, playing some exchange down position. What for?
But which move order though? Like h6, knight e8 check. Yeah, we can take, but I guess they go gh first, right?
You can even take. Yeah, you can even take on h6.
Yeah, no, we don't really want that. I don't think. Might be technically not immediately winning just yet, but like, why would we do this to ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the biggest question is what are we supposed to be afraid of after a3? It's not rook c1. Hang on, whoa! I was very scared there for a second because I thought this works, but it doesn't, right? It's just a draw. Because this is a very kind of a well-known setup, which is a perpetual in every sense of the word. A very solid setup with the rook on d7 and the knight on h7. So rook c1, a2, you cannot play rook c7 here, because after a1 and king g2, I mean, there's probably many reasons why this doesn't work, but the simplest of them, of course, is queen takes f6. And black is winning. A3 played in the meantime. Yeah, I have a feeling it is something like king g2 or h4, just to get the king off of the back rank, and then something. But yeah, I don't know what that something is. Still, I mean, you have to say it's... hang on a second. Is there any chance white is better after rook e3?
Rook what?
Rook e3.
e3.
I mean, I understand you have an outside passer, but also none of your other pieces are capable of moving anywhere.
And this is where h6 and knight h7
Absolutely, yeah.
handy,
this is what I'm asking. Like, is there any chance this endgame is good for white?
Oh, you mean like that?
Probably not, right? There's like 0-0. I mean, we're probably fighting for a draw here.
Rook behind the passed pawn.
Yeah.
It's kind of, once again, remember the discussion about the Soviets go. I cannot really force myself to
Exactly,
calculate
yeah,
this because I'm supposed to know it's not good.
Yeah, this can never be good for white. Yeah, I'm trying to find ideas we haven't discussed or looked at before, and rook e3 is definitely something we haven't discussed before, but that's because it's just not good.
But what's black's next move?
A2, I assume.
Yes, so why don't we start with rook a2, and then kind of make okay, I'm quite optimistic, yeah, but make a few, let's say,
yeah, king g2 moves, and then something
and then
h3
maybe go
or
for
something.
rook e3.
Yeah.
Could it be that it's just like black all of a sudden runs out of moves?
I think probably the more serious idea now, if we just like pass twice, just to illustrate the idea, we can maybe play rook c2 now, right?
But that's what we discussed in one of the versions. A2, rook c7, and it's a checkmate.
This actually is
right?
checkmate.
We had the rook on a4 then. Remember, we had the rook on a4.
So yeah, we can definitely play rook a2 and wait for now, because of how passive the black setup is. You can go rook b3, as Amin is correctly pointing out, but yeah, you do play that, and you're still one tempo short, right? Because rook c2 will not work just yet when a1 is still a check, and if I go king g2, rook b2, rook a1, a2, seems like black is the one making a ton of progress here, not white, right? With rook b1 threats coming in. Yeah, I think rook b2 probably is the most direct response to rook a2, and I don't know what we're going to do about it. Okay, so we start with...
Honestly, at the very
Go
least,
on.
now rook e3 is already an improvement.
That is true, but probably not improved enough, right? I assume the variation doesn't really change this much.
Yeah, I mean, you take and you run, but I don't think it...
Do we go e4,
Makes-
e5 to stop f6, or we don't care?
I mean, if you can do this...
But then rook e... No, but like
Let's-
the issue is, if you do this, you run into rook e8, right? And you...
And even
Yeah,
G5
like
is-
everything is... Like, everything will be hanging.
I think what we do here is trying to win somewhat
Yeah,
worse position.
exactly. I think we're definitely trying to get a round peg into a square hole, or the other way around. Which reminds me of one of the old Soviet jokes, which I am for some reason very fond of. That
Which is?
at the militia exam, like some kind of a graduation exam at the militia school, the militiamen were given those pegs and asked to fit them into variously shaped holes. And the exam showed that the militiamen are divided into two categories:
Yeah.
smart and strong.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're currently being a very strong militiaman here by trying to kind of force
By trying to
yeah,
win this
trying to
position,
force that position with the pawn on a3 would be better for white somehow. I'm still not sure how to play. I'm guessing if we're looking for a clever move that is going to be useful in most cases, it's probably king g2. And if a2, maybe we can go rook e2, quote-unquote force rook a3, and then maybe start pushing the d pawn. But that still doesn't sound to me like it's a winning attempt.
Where does it go?
Yeah, like-
exactly, because black can. I mean, h6 here, knight e6.
Yeah, like
is
I
here
just
as
don't
well.
understand.
So that what
Yeah.
was kind of
Mhm.
stopping me from playing d6.
Yeah, mainly I'm just confused as to why white is supposed to be better here. Can I not start with rook d2 after king g2? Yeah, you definitely can, Linus.
I can tell you
But-
why. Because Magnus is playing white. Imagine
No,
all
but
the
I guess-
same, but
No,
colors
this
will
actually
worse.
is somewhat worrisome. The reason we're
So
playing
seven,
a2 here is specifically to stop rook c1 from happening. If you spend a tempo on rook d2, you might have to once again contend with rook c1 c7, and this is actually mate. As let's show the mate actually once on the board, because I don't think we've done it yet. It's not a very difficult one, but it's still a kind of a picturesque position considering.
So you take on h7 in such positions,
Yeah,
not
maybe
f8.
f8 is.
I don't
more
know.
aesthetically
I mean,
pleasing,
it's
yeah.
just a...
So I think in order to not even have to calculate rook c1, you probably play a2 here. Although there are other ways. Once again, like I don't particularly like that move, but there is a move rook c8. I just feel like it's a little bit vague, and allowing rook a7 is absolutely unnecessary because, yeah, why would you?
Hang on a second. Could be a little bit more than unnecessary, because now I'm not planning to take on a3. Yeah,
No,
exactly.
I think this is wrong.
Like-
I think we might still be sort of okay after h6 here, hopefully for black. But yeah, you're definitely running significant risks suddenly.
Are we like rook e1? You take no. That's a bit too much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah. Perhaps I have to play h4.
but
yeah, and then
I think we're supposed to play a2 here just for sort of simplicity's sake. Just so that we never have to even have a conversation about the rook leaving the corner. Hey, Rhinestone.
why wouldn't we? Right? I mean, let's play a2
Yeah,
because it's
exactly.
a fast pawn.
No, I mean the reason not to play a2 is perhaps because rook e2 exists, moving you moving you into a quote-unquote passive position with, everything on the A file occupied with protecting the pawn on A2. But on the...
hang on a second. After rook
Yeah.
E2, how bad would be to play
also
H6?
true, yeah, H6 and...
Kind of trying to
Yeah,
secure
knight
a draw.
check, and maybe we don't even have to take
Knight
the...
check, king
Yeah, maybe we don't even
H7
have to take the
maybe.
draw here, honestly. In this position, I would start kind of thinking if maybe we can punish white a little bit for their insolence.
So you'd be a bit interested in this game, yeah?
Why wouldn't Magnus just repeat now? Because Peter hasn't gone on break yet. Yeah, that is the correct question and reply.
Yeah, wait a second. We've discussed it, and because of this silly free day yesterday, we've completely forgotten. That's a secret weapon.
We could actually
Right,
try. There's definitely an option right now of announcing that we have such fantastic Vishy interviews in the video roll today that we're just going to let you listen to Vishy for like 15 minutes, and then we will come back and start, discussing the vagaries of life in the mid-40s, because the game will be over. But
so you think 15 minutes would be a bit much, yeah?
yeah, I think. But we probably it's one of those, with great power comes great responsibility, and we don't really want to contribute to that really annoying conversation about the World Championship being dead and the necessity. Even though somebody already mentioned the 960 in the YouTube chat, I like 960. I wouldn't mind a lot more 960 being played. I just don't think we need to replace the current system wholesale just yet. So I think, actively trying to make this game finish as soon as possible is probably not the way to go, sort of karmically.
Mm-hmm. So it's Magnus who is thinking after A3. We still don't
Yeah, we
know
still don't really know what he wants.
kind of what to consider to be the best try, sort of. So once again, king to G2, and we said A2.
I think A2, yeah. I don't really like allowing rook C1.
Hang on a second. Have we ever tried rook
Not
E8?
in this position. It was suggested a bit earlier when the pawn was still on A4. I'm assuming I would like to put it on A4.
But play a different move. Like, play a silly move. Play rook A5.
Okay.
Please. Rook
I kind of knew where this was going.
A1 queen. And rook
And
to F8.
unfortunately, it still doesn't work. Yes, sad.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's
sadly,
the problem.
it becomes exciting for a second and then it collapses.
Mm-hmm.
And with the rook on C1, we would have been able to play GF in this position, but with the rook on C1, there would be no mate up there. Yeah,
Rook F8,
there would
king
be no mate
F8.
here
That's
because
precisely why I went to
because
E1. Because here
we
the
can
king
run
is
away.
running away.
So yeah, that fanciful idea doesn't quite work. And of course, also the issue is
It will, even with the moderate amount of black cooperating.
Yeah.
Right, because black is by no means forced.
Yeah, and I think having it on A4 to have additional access to like checks along the fourth rank is stronger.
Hang on a second. Are you sure that black has to move the rook after rook E8? Because that's exactly what I was kind of going king G2.
Hang on a second. Yeah, king. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Thought
Yeah.
here. Wait, here I thought you can trade, but
you were
I'm
doing
not
it
sure.
this way. Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, I was doing it specifically this way so that if you trade on E8, I'm taking the A pawn.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, the issue is how do we proceed? We did get the rook to the back rank, but I don't see how to use it. We can go rook e2 here and get the version of the position we were discussing earlier, but with rook on a4 instead of a8. But I don't really understand what that gives us. Yeah.
So that
I don't know. H6 is still.
We don't.
I don't know why this is good for us. I don't know. We play a move. I don't know. H4, whatever. h3.
H3. Uh-huh.
I will not hear a word said against our mods, Kahisin. Our mods are the best mods. Yeah, maybe rook d2 and then start pushing the d pawn, but it doesn't really run very far. Instead of h3, I guess we do it here.
I actually like H3.
Yeah, I thought h3 was clever just to kind of wait for a move, but... Oops, sorry, that's h4, not h3. But I mean, if I can, I will play h6 here.
But then what? Then all of a sudden I give a check. You go
I think
to
h7. Yeah, I don't particularly want to give this pawn up.
h7 and rook e7. You take after check. Yeah, I mean it's still
Yeah, I missed this move.
mildly
I
interesting.
missed that move. Yeah, and the Sese spotters in chat are suggesting the first 13 lines in this position are all a draw, which is a large number. It's probably a larger number than I would have guessed. This is 13. The first 13 lines are all draw.
13. Can you... Does black have that many moves? Can you believe it?
No, it's white. It's
Oh,
white.
no, it's
yeah,
white.
It's not
Yeah,
black.
it's white. So h3, h4, f3, f4. That's 4 of those.
Let's get back to
Perhaps
the current
moving the
position.
white rook to any square on the first rank.
Even that, like rook somewhere and then back to a1 is a draw, I think. That's a...
No, and then just check. I thought maybe just check then.
I don't know.
I know, but hang
I
on.
don't know
But then you'd find courage to go to h8
Yeah.
finally.
I might have courage enough to play king h8 in that case.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's not really very critical to try to name all 13. Rook c1 draws, rook
Rook
b1
c1
loses.
rook b1 loses. Yeah, logical.
This is just great. I guess it's because of rook f7. Yeah, I know why. It's specifically
Beautiful.
because of rook
That's
f7.
actually
We showed this earlier. Yeah.
At least we
We showed
is
this earlier. This makes sense to me. Yeah.
to cherish upon. Yeah. Check and a lot of checks at the end.
Yeah, and perhaps even more than 13 as the information keeps filtering in. So yeah, the whole narrative of Magnus kind of pushing it a little bit here by not taking the repetition earlier is apparently just entirely false. Unsurprisingly, but also, I mean, we're not shocked that this is a very solid position for black and that black calls, because we are currently really struggling to name anything that makes significant progress. Can I suggest Peter has a wee break so that we can get this done? Yeah. I can always go for a stretch. But like I just don't like actually putting up the stream will continue soon screen, because it feels like I'm sort of like actively manipulating the events by doing that. It's objectively untrue, but to my amateur eye, it looks like white is the one taking the risk here. Yeah, I would actually kind of agree with that, Hisin, yeah. It's just that the more you think about it, the more you realize it's very difficult to make any kind of progress by either side.
But how does white take risk if he always has the perpetual? I mean, that's what I'm. I mean, nobody's taking risk. It's just that the position you can lose if you're an idiot. I mean, if you play a bad move, you can lose. But that's pretty much
that describes
every
position,
yeah.
which is how things should be. Do you feel the difference at the highest level between 90-minute and 2-hour-long games? I haven't actually played the time control they're playing, I think, in quite some time. I think even St. Louis were outside of the World Championship matches. I think the Singfield Cup was sort of the last holdout.
Hang on a second. The Grand Prix Series 2017 was exactly...
Grand Prix used to be
time
7 hours, but I haven't played in
Speaking from the
Mm,
experience.
in those in a bit. But yeah, generally these time controls feel a bit more lenient, and I think it's more really about the 30 minutes till the end, rather than the first 40. I think the first 40, like arguing that 2 hours is more time than 1 hour 40, or whatever that is. I mean, it is sort of 1 hour 40 if you play the sort of the official FIDE time control, so to speak, the one the Olympiads and the World Cups are played with. Obviously 2 hours is more than 1 hour 40, but that's not a life-changing difference. But the fact is, basically, if the position after move 40 is difficult enough, the time trouble that starts before the first time control, say like at around move 30, you're in reasonable time trouble because it's a complicated position, you don't have very much time. That time trouble never really ends. Because if you have to spend, I don't know, any kind of time at all on the decision on move 41, 42, you're just back in that time trouble. And it's going to last until the end of the game, which gives you absolutely no breathing time. Like there's, with the FIDE time control used for those tournaments that I mentioned, it really does feel like once the sort of the official designated time trouble period starts, it just never stops. Despite you getting the half an hour after move 40. And that is clearly not the case here, because you're getting an hour. And an hour for 20 does allow you to kind of take stock, catch your breath, and perhaps, regroup and think properly. Just tuned in. Is there anything left in this position, guys? We don't know, because we can't find it, but Magnus has been thinking for quite some time, hasn't given a perpetual yet. I mean, he clearly doesn't like the idea of giving a perpetual here, because it means that his opening idea is, it kind of fizzled and didn't really give him anything, but...
Brilliant. May I come up with my answer? Is there anything left in the position? 2 rooks and a knight and some pawns each, which pretty much describes the situation on the board.
Correct, you are.
See, I'm an expert.
Yeah, it's not much fun to face it as Nepo, knowing Magnus can draw at will. I don't think that's how that works, Neil. I think the more Magnus thinks here, the more Jan has time to recalculate everything over and over again and convince himself he is completely fine, or as the case may be. Once again, I think he got here a little bit too quickly with black. I think he got here at such a speed that I seriously wouldn't rule out the possibility that he knew. And then, there's just no psychological pressure on him at all right now, because he just knows this is a draw. If people are suggesting rook c7, rook b7, let's look at rook b7, because that at least I understand what the threat is.
I kind of looked at but
I think the issue is, I can go in, right?
You're kind of not on time.
Because rook a6 doesn't actually stop the things it's planning to stop, since in this position, there's a very usual... I mean, it's not the only move that wins, but it's kind of useful to know this.
You can go rook b1.
It's useful to know this motif. You can give it away, and then...
wait, in some positions... let's say if we would have put black king on h8 and there would be no knight on f8, then you would actually
need to know this exists. Yeah, like if you imagine, even with the knight on f8, like if you imagine our king here and this knight hanging, this
so rook b1, queen.
Yeah, this would lose.
Queen,
while this would win. Rook b7. I think the biggest issue for white is that a2 rook b3 comes a little bit too quickly, so you're not in time to stop it. And the suggested move rook c7, I mean, it exists, but I don't really understand what it does. Apart from destroying our own perpetual mechanism, which means I can very safely play h6 here with black, for instance. Even bishop c4 is a better try against Petrov than this. I recently tried playing bishop c4 so as not to play the Petrov, and I can tell you that statement, I mean, it's not exactly an incorrect statement, but the issue is, even there's so much theory by this point that you're not guaranteed to get a game. Like in this line, it used to just promise you some kind of a game, perhaps no advantage, but some kind of a game. But they've recently, the theory of the bishop b4 check variation has been advanced to a somewhat alarming degree. And I had a recent game where, like, my opponent played this, played a5 here. You should actually play a4, but I always prefer to keep the pawns on the squares not of my bishop's color. So I played a3, my opponent castled. Now that was in Riga against Yuri Kuzubov. And I kind of knew that knight takes e5 is equal here, and it takes d5 is also equal here, because I prepared for the game. And
how is that knight e5?
Knight e5, they just...
line going?
These days they just play, I think, queen e7, f4, d. I know what you were trying to set up, but you're not getting this in this one.
Yeah, of course. I love this.
Yeah, I can actually show this because it's very beautiful. The line Evgeny is referring to is
DD. Yeah, now kind of if you trade the queens, I'm taking with the knight protecting the pawn, right? So you go queen e7.
It's kind of weird though.
I think it's queen f4.
We start with queen f4. We start with queen f4
first. Knight to h5. You think, okay, I'll trade everything on f7 and, okay, maybe have some chances in the endgame. And
this endgame is actually probably a little bit better for white. So they go king h8. And then there is a really, really beautiful move, which...
because the kind of the queen.
Yeah, we can set this up as a puzzle. Yeah, and give our chat, let's say, I don't know, a minute to find.
It was played in the.
I know, but I'm not sure much of our chat has seen this game, and it's a very beautiful move, which I think will give people a lot of enjoyment to find on their own. But unfortunately, you're not getting this position.
I'm not even sure if white is better in this position. After having played the cool move that we are talking about.
Yeah, even that is unclear, but it's such a beautiful. Queen h6 will just take with the pawn. That doesn't quite work. gh is quite strong after queen h6. Yeah, very nice move the first time you see it. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm 1200 and I suggest knight g6. Knight g6 is sort of kind of along the right lines, but you don't have any follow-up, unfortunately, after hg.
Yeah, we'll have to say black will take the bishop next.
And the correct solution is now in chat, so I'll just show it. The correct solution here is queen g3, keeping the knight on e5 still protected. And if black takes, now we go knight g6.
Then you go with knight g6, and hg3 happens to be a checkmate in 2.
Yeah, that is really, really beautiful. But unfortunately, even if this position was better with white, it's not. You're not getting it because they play queen e7. And if you start with e takes d5, this is also supposedly completely fine for black. Not even supposedly. There was a recent game, I think Veselin Topalov played with black, which is completely fine here. So I thought, okay, what's the problem? I'll just make some kind of a quiet move here and played knight c3. And after rook e8, white is already worse. Like
worse,
minus 0.50.
Worse.
Like significantly worse. And this is the issue with not playing like the main lines and just hoping that making normal moves will give you a playable position. I mean, I went completely insane here, but even without going completely insane, you're not going to enjoy this position very much. And Magnus is still thinking, so we have more time to spend on tangents.
I'm afraid the more he's thinking, the better idea you're getting what's coming next.
Are there any anti-Petrovs apart from bishop c4?
Checks with
King's Gambit definitely. Like there are, but really sort of viable ones. I mean, the old Vienna, not the one in the d4, d5 lines. People still do this occasionally, yeah, sure, via either this move order.
People who are fond of Rook E1 Berlin, perhaps. Because here, I think it's perfectly fine to take on
they're now doing this, right? In this position, they just go bishop b7 and say,
because maybe we have to give a bit of explanation here, provide a bit of explanation, because it used to be, I believe, for both of us, kind of a romantic line from a childhood. So the black's gonna go knight c6, knight b5, and then you play g6, and he's persistent. He goes to f3, and then he goes to d5, and now you're forced to go queen e7.
Yeah. Play used to start from here. And this is a really fun position to play. Like, it genuinely, if you can get this, I'm assuming really with any color, it's a really fun position to play and analyze. And I assume computers probably think white is a bit better, but...
And maybe the modern computer is right,
Yeah,
but still. But imagine playing this like 20
Mhm.
years ago. I mean, it's a whole universe.
Yeah. But unfortunately, these days they just play bishop b7 instead, give you the e5 pawn, say ha, and...
Yeah. And if you're a big fan of Rook E1 Berlin with white, you can go for this.
You can definitely do this, yeah. How do you evaluate the choice of d4 and knight takes e5? Those are very different types of structures. I mean, both are playable, and both currently, I don't think, are supposed to give anything. I think the current state of theory in the Petrov suggests that black is fine. I am not the world's biggest authority, but the Petrov I actually still occasionally analyze as opposed to the Berlin, which I just gave up on completely. Is the 4 knights less drawish? No, I don't think so. I think...
It's weird with 4 knights, in fact, because it's like, it seems to be rich, but only if black wants it, right? I mean, and by black wants it, it's the knight d4 move, and typically if black plays knight d4, he knows everything makes a draw. I mean, I'm talking these 4 knights, of course, not the d4 4 knights, which is just that draw. But also black can play bishop b4, and I remember people used to find some ideas here. And now looking at it, I don't quite understand what those
I don't know.
ideas were.
I won a very nice game against Vladimir Malakhov when I needed to win on demand in the last round of the last super final I ever won in 2017. But that was mainly, I think, because Vladimir was, for some reason, more nervous playing that game than I was. I didn't really get anything out of the opening, but I just sort of continued making moves, and eventually he started kind of allowing chances. Yeah, I mean, it's all really a matter of taste, and
4 knights a3, by the way.
Yeah, all of these things.
There's
been a number of games. I think in Riga, some people even played a4 in this position. All of those things, like yeah, I think Martin Kravtsev played a4 in this position in Riga.
Okay, I've
Rook
heard of
b1,
Rook b1.
a4, a3, h3. All of these moves exist. Yeah.
No, but wait, but a4, I can't really understand what's the slightest point of it.
It's a move. I don't think there is a point.
Because I mean, a3, there is a clear kind of a point to it. So after a3, you basically don't have a move with black, right?
Yeah.
You don't have bishop b4. Bishop c5 runs into me capturing on e5. runs into, okay, a bit of a stretch, yeah. And d5, you actually take on d5 and take on e5. And this system doesn't really work for black, but with the inclusion of a2, a3, it works to such an extent that white's not
like
worse.
This line,
Yeah, knight e5, queen e2.
And so on and so forth. Yeah.
f6, f6, d4. And now imagine white's black, black's white. The pawn is on a2, and bishop b4 would be really unpleasant.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like we're sort of going further and further afield, trying to tell you guys something new about something, at least, since we can't really tell you anything new about the current position. One thing to say about the current position is that Magnus has spent 32 minutes on a decision here already.
32 minutes.
He still has 36. He's in no kind of time trouble at all. But, I mean, he clearly is... This is not him pretending, you know. Sometimes you just know you will give the perpetual, and you want to sit there for 10 minutes so that, you know, people will not ask you annoying questions at the press conference. Hello. But... in Magnus's case, it's clearly not that. He clearly is sort of desperately looking for something that allows him to continue the game. But probably not really coming with any kind of successful solutions, because it's a reasonably sharp endgame for, you know, the amount of pieces left on the board, but it's still a kind of a 3-piece endgame. And if he hasn't found the solution in 33 minutes and counting, he is, by this point, I would suggest increasingly unlikely to find the solution.
Mm-hmm. Firouzja plays Caro-Kann with success. Why don't they play? Come on.
I mean,
Firouzja plays Caro-Kann with success? Question mark?
Yeah, first of all, like sort of question mark, but also, much as all of us really, I'm sure that it will be difficult to find people who are watching this channel who did not enjoy his recent run and who don't think he is an exciting player and, very much looking forward to the candidates and so on. But, quality of opposition and also quality of opening preparation you face, even in the Grand Swiss, compared to the World Championship match, is kind of different. I wouldn't say Caro is unplayable. I'm pretty sure Caro is sort of playable, but Caro is... You definitely, by playing the Caro, in particular the lines that Alireza has been playing, like he's been playing, I think, e5, bishop f5, and then the slow development in the advanced Caro. Yeah, knight e8 check played in the meantime. Looks like we might finally get an outcome.
Yeah.
So if we talk about the Caro, like these lines, and then you avoid, like there are some lines here which attempt to make a forced draw with black, but he's not playing them. He's playing for a win. And by playing for a win in positions like this, you actually do run significant strategic risks. And I don't think it's the right approach for the World Championship match unless you're trailing. Like if you're minus 2 in the match and you have to like start playing for a win with every color, then maybe yes, you no longer play the Petrov and you switch to something like this because there's going to be a lot of play. But there's going to be a lot of play, but you will start by not equalizing very, very often against well-prepared players, and you will be playing against a well-prepared player in the World Championship match. So yeah, I don't think this is relevant.
Hang on a second. I mean, I don't quite understand. It's like people seem to be carried away with this. With first of all, White's persistence of going e5 all the time. But if we are talking like the old-fashioned card, where on earth you're playing for a win?
Or that line that all of them seem to be playing right now, like playing this for a win. Black actually does win a significant proportion of these positions.
Yeah, because you're kind of bullying White player, giving him a better structure. But if he doesn't want it,
but I actually had this against Magnus in the European clubs in I think 2018, and I came very, very close to winning this position with White, just by making sort of normal moves and continuing to tempt him to kind of overpress. And then once he did somewhat overpress with Black, I just the underlying structure is just so much in White's favor that if you make a wrong step somewhere, you're just going to have to defend a very annoying endgame for the rest of the game, and he barely survived that endgame. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we're discussing things which are further and further away from what is currently on the board, because
on the board
we have people giving checks back and forth, and it seems like the game might be over now.
The game 4.
Game 4, that is, yeah.
Might be over, yeah. Exchange Caro is a Queen's Gambit decline calls, but structure
that is true, yeah.
reversed.
You can play these positions, and Magnus has done this with White, with like...
You know what, Peter? Sorry, again, sorry to interrupt, but I remember... I mean, I have no idea how this position came about, but this, Bishop d3 and so on and so on. And I was talking with someone of modern generation players, and not the elite players, but I don't know, 26 plus Grandmaster. I honestly don't remember whom. And I was referring, but that's that's an exchange Caro, the thing that Fischer used to play and stuff. And he says no, that comes from the London system. The freaking London system. I couldn't convince him otherwise. So to him, this E takes, C takes, and Bishop D3 Caro-Kann, it's just a freaking sideline of a London system.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, so they get there via this move order, and they think it's a London.
They think they know
They
why.
think it's a London, the Philistines. Yeah, do not like JPEG. Okay, Magnus gave 2 check and is thinking again. This is becoming somewhat aggravating, I have to say.
I mean, Rook C1 fine.
Yeah, I think maybe he is. That would be a kind of a nice way to end the game, right? You just go Rook C1, Rook F7 here.
Fischer played it with C4 though. No, Fischer played it both. Like he did play the exchange, and he played the pawn of attack, which is C4.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that theory about move 40 is holding up particularly well, Kadna.
But why do you need move 40 if you can repeat 3 times, right?
I don't know. I don't think it's about that. Weirdly, today, if this ends the way we expect it to end, it's probably the driest game we've had so far. And because of all this kind of a subplot of who knew what until when, this is maybe the one I want to watch the press conference for the most. But, I mean, obviously it will all be quoted somewhere, so I don't need to watch the press conference live, but...
Yeah, so... people in Twitch chat suggest that it works both ways. So we can manipulate the game by announcing the break, but at the same time, even though it's a threefold repetition, the obvious one, it won't happen
before we announce a break.
Okay, let's break the curse. Let's try to wait.
Yeah,
and it's not that long left.
What opening has been crushed into oblivion the most by our electronic overloads and stopped appearing in classic high level chess? Not even sure.
None. Interestingly.
Go on.
None.
Yeah,
I mean nothing.
Yeah, and the answer in chat, the King's Indian, is maybe the best answer we have of the quote unquote. Scheveningen actually is a very good answer. Scheveningen is a very good answer because I think, and there is a very, very easy way to explain it as well, because
because of H3
exactly. I just I don't even need to start my sentences here. You don't continue them. You actually say them for me. The existence of the move H3 in this position is
after E6
is basically proof.
And then after
proof
what,
that
Bishop E7. I mean, just go one couple of moves. Yeah.
Here, you can,
Bishop E7.
You can actually do this.
And
you
go
can actually do this.
So you wasted a bloody tempo, which Black spent on A7, A6, which is a useful move.
And this is a bad. I think this is incredibly risky.
Yeah, currently it stands as a very
you don't want to be here. You want to play something else against H3. Probably not E6 altogether. Probably you want to play E5 here.
Yeah. And now imagine a carry
and then you compare it to this. And you come to the conclusion that probably I should not be playing the classical Scheveningen until they go Bishop E2 against my Najdorf. The way to play the classical Scheveningen is to do this and then do this. And say, now we're back into kind of normal territory and we can do we can do for the usual things. Isn't there some E6 G4 D5 line? Yeah, it does. Those things happen. It's not supposed to entirely equalize, and there's a number of things I can try here. I mean, the immediate Bishop G2 is actually not stupid. I think Knight D2 exists in this position, and also the main line, which I think goes takes Knight D2, is probably around equal, but you're not having that much fun. But if you're trying to argue that H3 doesn't win the game, yes, H3 doesn't win the game, but we're saying the fact that you actually have to think about how to equalize against that is very, very strong proof that this will be bad for you.
Yeah.
So yes, Scheveningen is a very good answer, I think. And yeah, the King's Indian, but
if we are talking about the systems, right? Because obviously computer kind of shown that let's say this line's bad, and this line that's considered to be bad is all of a sudden good, but within like a very tiny territories, right? And we are talking about the systems, about the openings. Then then King's Indian perhaps, but with King's Indian, it's not that it would be ever kind of prevalent as
exactly.
as an opening
Yeah.
for black, right? I mean, some people played it, some people might still play it.
Yeah, the issue with the King's Indian is that it was never at the very, very top level. There's always like one or two people who keep the flame alive, and like in recent years, that would definitely be, I think, Hikaru and Rajabov at certain points of their careers. Sasha more
From time to
recently,
time?
yeah. And basically, both Hikaru and Rajabov became like hardcore Queen's Gambit declined players afterwards. Yeah, which I
gives you
think
an
is sort
idea.
of as far away as you can go in spirit from having been an attacking King's Indian player, which should give you a hint.
Man, okay, I've never been that high, let's say, but I've played chess, and don't quite remember, but at some point I've switched to Queen's Gambit, the Laska defense, right, to Nimzo and so on and so on. And it struck me as a surprise. So you're actually allowed to have kind of no bad pieces after the opening. I mean, it's not, you're not forced to have an idiot bishop on g7 and a knight on e7 when you start the game.
I actually,
So
I dislike the knight on e7 so much, also very much influenced by my coach at the time, Andrei Lukin, that when I was playing the King's Indian, which was not a very long time, and it was a very, very long time ago, I actually did not play the main line at all because of how much I hated the idea of having the knight on e7. So I used to play like the old King's Indian.
The
like
c6 thing, or
knight
knight to
yeah.
d7 thing, yeah.
Just because like the idea of placing my knight on this square just gave me such nightmares that I refused to do it altogether. Yeah. And we were not participating in that discussion, but I do want to endorse the statement by Kohisin that Dubov is such a gift for modern theory. He is like an unbelievable source of new ideas, more or less everywhere. Kind of not single-handedly, but sometimes you think maybe he is single-handedly reviving, the hope that at the very highest level you can still play pretty much anything and find fresh approaches to it. Are we not going to sing Happy Birthday to the man himself? Probably not.
No.
Probably not, no. Yeah. Maybe we would, but he had thought about knight of 6, knight e8 for 32 minutes and then did it once and is now thinking for 10 minutes again, so... No singing. What's the craziest idea that was introduced by computers in openings? A singular idea, I think it would be difficult to name. I think the most people will give the same answer if you want to name a concept that was introduced to computers, and they will not be incorrect. It's obviously the idea of playing h4 in every single position where it's legal. It existed before, and definitely, you can't lay claim to computers having invented it, but computers definitely made more and more people appreciate just how strong it is in how wide the range of positions.
I would go further. I'd say not just moving the rook pawn, but moving it all the way to the 6/3rd rank, right? Because let's say in your beloved Grunfeld, people played h4, h5 in order to kind of capture on g6 and try to open the h file. I thought, okay, I'm no expert whatsoever, but I thought that having the pawn on h6 seemingly stopping your attack, but kind of postponing the space advantage, that kind of long shot at the potential endgame. I mean, maybe that was what Alpha Zero kind of brought up.
Yeah. And the bishop c4 Grunfeld with the h4, h5, h6 ideas. Yeah.
Good call by Larinda. Sorry to interrupt, but good call by Larinda. Magnus is out of the book.
Yeah, does seem like it.
Yeah, that's fair to
Yeah,
say.
sacrificing, and yeah, like Linus, you're not wrong, but also it existed until Stockfish and AlphaZero and the current state of affairs where you're a lot happier giving stuff up in the opening because computers will actually back you up. But yeah, it's become much more mainstream to just give up things for long term dynamic.
Yeah. So sorry. What years we are talking about when, let's say, computers started to sacrifice a pawn for kind of for an initiative, long-lasting compensation? So it's of recent. It's like 2-3 years ago.
I
right?
think it's pretty recent. Yeah, I'm not the world's expert on this, but yeah, it does feel to me like this is a reasonably recent development.
Okay, so 3 words: Catalan, 1970s, Romanician.
Yeah,
And you can check those games. I mean, and yeah.
absolutely. I mean, all of these things existed, but they were a lot more niche than they are right now.
Obviously.
And it's a lot easier, I think, these days to convince people that a certain pawn down position where you aren't really generating any kind of direct threats, you have healthy compensation, which is unlikely to go away anytime soon. And
Or
yeah,
unhealthy.
people will believe you when you tell them that. At least I'm hoping they will believe you, because I'm about to do that in Volume 2 in a very, very big way. And yeah, I'm a bit worried about how people will receive one particular idea in there, but I'm still not changing it. What odds would you give on a Benoni appearing? As long as the score is not horrible for either player, very, very long odds, I would say.
Benoni. Huh.
In recent times, I think Benoni has been played in the World Championship match once, I want to say, in recent memory, and that was Game 13 of the Brissago match, where Vladimir had 2 games to level the scores against Leko, and he played the Benoni with black because he no longer...
You mean the
the proper
Benoni?
Benoni, yeah.
Okay, at least there's some sort of a Benoni structure happening.
No, I mean like
right?
a specific Benoni, yeah.
But nobody's playing specific Benoni.
Yeah.
Why
well, I
would
mean,
you do
Vlad
this?
did, and he was actually winning.
Kind of G3 C5, and pardon me, I mean, like G3 C5 can be played.
Yeah,
right?
Sure. Yeah, but he played a proper like mainstream classical Benoni with a pawn steal on G2 and was at some point winning in that game. Knight e8 check played, so yeah, looks like we may have broken the curse, because this is maybe not threefold yet, but it will be threefold soon, right?
It wasn't hard, to be honest.
It will be threefold soon.
Today's game, it wasn't hard.
Yeah, and if we manage to last all through the game without taking a proper break, maybe we can lift the curse and no longer worry about taking breaks for the rest of the match.
Now Nepa goes to H8.
Just kind of hard troll. Yeah, now the game is about to end, because I think now Jan can actually claim after knight f6 check. Know that, and now maybe we can we can have this really weird dance of both of them unwilling to actually call the arbiter and claim. But no, I think I already have the result on my screen.
We have a result.
The game is over. I'm very curious as to where the analysis ended for either of them. But
nice, Peter, nice. So now that we've broken the curse, we can take a break after the game's over, so we are not in danger.
We can take a long break, about 21 hours, and then reconvene.
Bangkok Gambit got killed by computers.
Yeah.
Was it alive before?
Yeah, the big question is how alive was it until then, yeah. It is an X-gambit. It has ceased to be. So not much really. I don't really think we need too much of a wrap-up because like the last hour of commentary here was basically extensive wrap-up of everything that went on before. The only like real question that I have is the one I just mentioned. I would like to know if Jan actually knew everything or if he just trusted in his calculations so much that he played Rook FC8 and Bishop takes F4 at the speed that he played it, which would be extremely impressive, but also somewhat reckless, I would say. I think taking those decisions at this speed is unusual, and I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. But I mean, Jan is not everybody. Jan is, when he's playing well, he is an extremely fast and extremely confident calculator of sharp lines.
What did we decide it here specifically in this position? So what happens if we go Bishop A3? That was, remember, was the other try.
You mentioned it exists, and then pretty much immediately after that, Bishop F4 was played onto the board, so we don't know. Let's take a look for a second. I don't think we're supposed to go back, right? So I think we're pretty sure we're supposed to take. And now we have to find this.
Wait a second. Can't we win a tempo by losing a tempo? Can we go Bishop F8?
Clever. Maybe. Yeah, clever.
So that
very clever.
If white takes, the C3 is still hanging.
And now I cannot take on D5 without trading on F8 because this is hanging.
Yeah, and then knight takes.
So we have to go Bishop F8. I guess King takes.
No, knight. I thought knight takes, honestly.
Yeah.
Knight F4 I still can take on C3, and otherwise I go knight E6.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very solid. And probably is the reason why Bishop A3 is not great. This is a very nice spot, yeah. Very nice spot.
Yeah. Asked the question, gave an answer.
Yeah.
I'm useful today.
And apparently before Rook FC8, Knight F6, Bishop H6, followed by some G5 weirdness, apparently was quite exciting and was for a while the first line of Sese, I think, but then it disappeared. But Jan didn't play it, so we will never know what's going on here. That arrow just straight up disappeared, just like this one, Shahanske. All right, I think that's probably it for today. I will let you guys watch those Vichy interviews. There's 3 of them there. Altogether, they're probably around 25-ish minutes, I suspect. Tomorrow there is once again rumors of the 14th world champion showing up. I will confirm them before announcing anything on Twitter. But that's what I hear from the boss man. The boss man mentioned something along those lines. So
anyway, I'll be around.
Absolutely, yeah. I just
he doesn't show up, just let me know.
Yeah, just say your name thrice, and there you are. Mirror, 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 and you are sort of the opposite of Kaiser Sose. You poof, and you appear. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Tomorrow is game 5. Jan will be playing the white pieces, and then there's another break, and then they're playing 3 over the weekend, starting from Friday, sticking to the same schedule.
So that'll be nice extended weekend then.
Very, very nice. Yeah, enjoyable in every possible way. So hopefully see you tomorrow. And for today, stay tuned for the Vichy interviews. And hope to see you tomorrow.
Yep. See you then.
Extremely well at a very high level. It's almost like you're jealous, but that you admire. So for me, I would say that kind of creative thing. Like I remember once upon a time I felt I didn't understand these Leningrad structures in the Grunfeld. Yeah. And then you would watch Boris do it and you'd think, okay. I wish I could play it like that. But it's not enough to just study 1 or 2 games.
Can you learn
Somehow he
skills?
hasn't. Yes, I believe that you can. Especially nowadays, this is probably the most important thing, that you sit with the positions that you're not very good at, and you use the computer to get better at it, because I think you can learn a lot. So in a sense, I would say creativity for me is a subjective thing. For me, what I find creative is what I do badly. Watching others do well, what I do badly. When somebody does the same thing that I do well, maybe it's difficult for me to be as impressed, because I can do it well as well. But when there is something you feel you can learn, then you feel, okay, that is really creative.
So it's more of a skills, not the actual creativity in the mind of some player, like, I don't know, Morozevich, Shirov.
Well, Morozevich, Shirov, I would admire them as well, but in a way, like, I don't think I ever want to do this, but it's impressive that they can do it. So I don't know if that's the right way of putting it, but I always found Morozevich and Shirov, well, a bit too unsound for my taste. I'm generally much more, to use an adjective, I would say classical, than they are. So yes, for me that is impressive. Ivanchuk, in a position that you know very well, he'll suddenly play a move that you hadn't thought of, and you think, actually that is the definition of creative, that something which no one has thought of until now, that suddenly you see that it's even possible. That's the first stage actually. First you must see that it's legal, and then you see that it's even good in this situation. But there are many kinds of creativity like this. There are people who play in games very well, and I've admired that a lot. And you're right, but it's difficult for me to narrow it down to 1 or 2 examples, because there are really a lot. I mean, I'm sure that if you asked me to give you an answer in 10 minutes, I could come up with 5 examples. But if you told me to give you an answer tomorrow morning, I could come up with 40. It's like that. Slowly you think, yes, that one and that one and that one. So. No, I think you constantly learn from everyone you play with. And it doesn't even have to be a strong player. Even a player who does something original or creative and then blunders it and loses the game, you still think, well, but that part he played very well, let me just check. And in fact, as a chess player, you're very curious about that. Whenever you finish a game, even I've finished games in simults, and then I go back and I think, that guy did that thing against me, completely floored me. Wait, now I need to spend a few minutes checking this. Okay. So it's quite a strong urge. It's not always connected to curiosity. It may be just that you didn't understand something or you forgot something, but we want to go back and make sense of it in the broader framework. I didn't know what to do next. Yes, I didn't know what to do next, and I've forgotten what I need to do in this position. I need to put it into something that makes sense to me, and then only then you can move on, something like that. It used to come to me more often. Recently, I would say that I don't think about chess as much as I used to. Maybe it's just that you've come of a certain age or you've tired a little bit, but I don't, when I'm at airports and all, in fact my mind wanders. And unless there was something very recent that happened that is still, it's got my attention, and you got it over in your head.
The past, I don't know, from 90s, from...
No, not so much. More recent stuff. I think, if something I'm wondering about this morning, I will continue to think of it at the airport. But the stuff from 20, 30 years ago, I don't think about it at all. In fact, I remember the events and the memories associated with the event, but not necessarily positions anymore.
You play chess? You want to know all the secrets of Grandmasters? You want to watch all current tournaments and know everything about chess history?
Levitov Chess World is much more than everything above.
unique documentaries about Garry Kasparov, Vladimir Kramnik, and many other legends of chess. Streams from the biggest tournaments. World Championship, Magnus versus Nepomniachtchi, commented by Peter Svidler, Evgeny Miroschnichenko. The Candidates Tournament, Tata Steel Chess Tournament. Exclusive interviews, Daniil Dubov, Viswanathan Anand, Jean-Christophe Duda, Alexander Grishuk, and of course, awesome educational videos with elite international chess coaches. Play chess, love chess, and subscribe now. New video every week. Turn on notifications and don't miss all the exciting moments of the chess world.
Like every generation, my generation built on what the previous generation was playing, and then the same procedure occurs, the same pattern repeats. Also stylistically, they're all, it's almost like they're mirroring us a bit. If you look at Carlsen and Caruana and Maxime and Nakamura, then I'm sure you can pair each one with a player from the past and it'll sort of match. And again, you can see also how people evolve. Hikaru used to play quite differently from what he does now. I think now he tries to be more classical than he used to be, and before he was really much more on sound. But it worked for him because it suited his style and his nature. And that's the thing, how do you learn something new without spoiling what used to work? I think Caruana is someone who's just an incredibly hard worker. Maybe in this sense, he reminds me of Boris, for instance, or maybe Vladi. I'm not sure who resembles me exactly. I mean, I have this slightly unsound part of me, but at some point I also tried to learn the Soviet school of chess's methods, this systematic study and so on. So, of course, I was wild till I was 20 or 21. Then once I started playing the matches, I think my style evolved a lot. I became aesthetically very conservative.
Because of the matches?
Yes, and because in general, you play top tournaments, you play matches, and you start to become so-called sound, which means you don't do you stop doing a lot of things. I think over time, it's probably done more for me than, done me more good than bad. But clearly, later on and nowadays, I find it very hard to do unsound things because I mentally trained myself to stop doing it. And it's difficult for me to break out of this also.
Here's some nostalgia a little bit, yeah?
Yes, quite often I look at people who do unsound things and I think it's a pity I don't really have this anymore. I wonder if I could get it back. And then you think, but again, we always face the same problems, but there is never entirely in the same way. So nowadays, there are things you want to relearn, but you have to respect that now our understanding of positions has changed, computers have changed a lot. You have to use new methods to learn old stuff. Well, at the beginning I took to it like a fish to water because it filled the biggest gaps in my chess. My biggest gap in those days was chess knowledge. It simply wasn't drilled into me in the same way. I had enough, but I had this very casual, I would pick up a book, read it, close it, then 2 days later pick up the same book again, read it again. There was nothing very organized or systematic about it. And then suddenly databases came along and it made it so easy for me to have access to all the latest tournaments, and it simplified life a lot in the beginning. I would say the first 5-10 years I took to it like a fish to water. I mainly benefited from it. But that is also because I was at that perfect age where you're not resistant to new knowledge. There is nothing you have an emotional attachment to and therefore you're unwilling to forget. and you absorb new knowledge effortlessly. So if we look at modern computers and what they show, I find the modern generation is the least resistant. They're the ones for whom it doesn't contradict a lifetime of learning.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, I would say it's a huge help. But of course, the computer revolution didn't stop. It continued and it picked up speed. And so there are periods when I found that I couldn't keep up. I found it hard to adjust. And I've brought up this topic of learning and relearning because it's very important. First of all, you know that we can almost forget everything Steinitz told us. Not forget in its entirety, but there are so many details that and so many nuances that you cannot just say move a piece once and this and that. Those rules don't make sense anymore. But even the rules that I thought I grew up with, suddenly, I mean that it's possible to be too dogmatic in chess. And there are no longer, I think, this concept of just the best moves. There are all sorts of moves, and each one has a stylistic component. They're not right or wrong. They're stylistic, and it's the sequence that can be right or wrong. So if you can play what we used to consider a bad move, but if you then are tactically very accurate, then it works. Mm-hmm. And probably that's the biggest difference between the younger generation and me nowadays, is that I think they suffer less. Mm-hmm. They also find it difficult. So I shouldn't exaggerate, but I think they suffer less. Whereas for our generation, very often we get into a position where we think this must be good. And it's quite a shock when you go back home and you check it and you realize that it isn't good. And then there is actually quite some learning in sitting and checking it slowly and realizing why it isn't good. Yeah. But yeah, it's tough. I think this is full of false positives. In the sense that there are days I've woken up and thought today is going to be a good day, I'm just feeling great, and it has been a great day, and you come back thinking, well, of course, QED. But there are as many days when I wake up and I think today feels really good, and you play a game, and without making excuses, today was one of these days. I felt quite good in the morning, but then I played 2 games, and now you think, how is it possible? I didn't even know I was capable of such bad chess. I mean, you like to think there is some sort of floor below which you cannot sink, and then you find that floor doesn't exist. And this happens to me quite often. One of the things we strive for is to have these early warning signals. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be before the game, it can be during the game. At a certain point, you find yourself thinking thoughts that, you would call it unhealthy, but basically what they are is, in previous games, when you've started to have these thoughts, it's ended badly. So there's a negative correlation. You think, when I think this, or when my mind is wandering off to this other subject, or something like that, typically I play badly then. Mm-hmm. So what you try to tell yourself is, okay, I'm familiar with the situation, it's happened to me before, it's time to pull myself together and try to get into a healthier frame of mind. Sometimes it's enough, sometimes you snap back. But nowadays I find that quite often when I'm at my worst, I have no sign of it coming. I play games that afterwards you think, my moves are so illogical that something went horribly wrong in my head. But if I could figure out what it is, then I would be a better player. I mean, sometimes it's almost like a study. You have to play perfectly to lose this position because it's impossible to lose it. And then you play perfectly. And the thing is, while you're playing it, every move of yours makes sense in a certain sequence. But then you realize afterwards that it's a total breakdown in your brain, that the entire sequence you got wrong. You made a move thinking it was your best choice under the circumstances. Then sometimes a minute later you realize it isn't, and sometimes you don't. But for me, it would be very nice if I had some way to find this this signal. You know, if I could anticipate it, then it would be that would be very big help for me. Because if you can anticipate it, then the next time if you see it coming, you'll know, okay, it's time to do this or do that. But these days I'm just floored when I'm playing badly. I cannot explain how I can play that badly for 4-5. But there's a breakdown in logic where you sometimes see a very complicated problem and then you come up with a very elegant solution to that problem and you miss something that's right in front of you. How to avoid that is a harder question because I mean, there are times when I try to work on this problem, but I've concluded that when your brain is your enemy, then you can't fool it. You can't bring it back. The better thing is to work on what goes well and try to maximize that rather than try to stop failure. Because, I mean, like today, you can't tell why suddenly this happens, but it just happens. And when it starts, you can't stop it even.
You can't stop it, huh?
Apparently, I'm not able to. But this is a complicated subject because I can give you many examples where I have done something about it and I've fixed the problem, but it never fully goes away. You know the expression, old wine in a new bottle?
Yeah.
For me, my collapses keep on reoccurring in new forms that I don't even recognize.
So it stays, how your brain reacts to different situations stays a little bit a mystery to you.
Yes, I feel that, see, when you're young, a couple of failures, you just brush it off and you play the next event and you think it'll go better, and it does go better. Let's say this is proving harder to do these days, but it was the same 20 years back. I did not know in advance when I was going to play badly. If I knew that, it'll change so much about what you do, but I haven't figured that one out. Yes, experience is one of the main things you can draw on. I think it's very nice when you remember something and you think this is how it worked, and not only at a technical level, but also at a psychological level, at an emotional level. If you can remember what works and you can isolate it, then it will improve your results. I often see things that youngsters do that I think, okay, that's a mistake. I see it, but you have to keep a fresh mind. Sometimes they do things better than you. One of the worst mistakes is to think that because you had a problem you couldn't solve, that nobody can solve it. And this is a big mistake you can make, because quite often these days, and again, this is one of the areas computers change everything because they rewrite the script. Well, there might be positions that are just simply impossible for you to play, things that you thought were solved, and then people come up with new ways of doing that, and then suddenly it opens your mind to what is possible in chess. And this, I think if you ever lose this feeling, then you're over. You must always be willing to learn something new. So, I think youngsters also do things that I thought, oh, he's making a mistake because if he does this, he's going to end up in this. And sometimes they surprise you. Sometimes they do it better than you, and you think, oh, wow. Apparently, it's not that it was impossible. It's just I couldn't do it. So you also have to balance it. Sometimes they make mistakes, but sometimes it's just their way of doing things. But you see more and more that every player's personality is very important in the way he approaches a problem. Because what doesn't work for you may well work for him. So it's